Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 18 of What If the Transformers Crash Landed in Code Geass. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Forward, the Light Brigade. After getting an alert from TAI about a break-in at the vault, and who it was that broke in, a specific mini-con that belonged to their prisoner, Bumblebee's vehicle mode wasted no time in driving to the laboratory. As soon as he arrived, Lelouch and Marianne, still in control of Anya's body, quickly stepped out just as the Autobot scout transformed and all of them looked in complete shock over what they saw. Bulkhead, Wheeljack, Ratchet, and Perceptor laid across the ground, just regaining consciousness from whatever had hit them. Bumblebee quickly moved to try and help them. Rai was the only one fully awake as he was out of the downed Raiden, addressing Tamaki, Lloyd, Rakshata, Cecile, Fixit, Nina, Sophie and Sayoko as they were in a similar state to their Autobot companions. But what really caught Lelouch's attention was that Soundwave was no longer there. The table that he was previously restrained to was now vacant, which led to him to believe that he had indeed escaped. But he didn't have time to think about that as Rai quickly noticed him and went right to him with a distressed look on his face. Lelouch, Soundwave, he escaped. Damn it. Lelouch scowled. And no, not just that, Rai was visibly scared as he grabbed his half-brother by the shoulders and spoke to him. He took them, Nunnally and Sarah. Soundwave took them both. Bumblebee's optics widened in shock as he heard that, while both Anya and Marianne were nothing short of horrified. Lelouch on the other hand, felt his heart stop as no words could properly describe the terror that he now felt. It was like all his blood suddenly froze. Nunnally and Sarah, both were taken by one of the most dangerous beings on this planet, maybe even in this universe. But even more frightening is that he already knew exactly where they would likely be taken to, or rather who they were taken to. Megatron gazed upon the dark star saber, seeing his own reflection in the side of the evil sword as he held it in his hands once more with his most loyal servant kneeling before him in the halls of Darkmount. Soundwave, once again you've more than exceeded my expectations. The Lord of the Decepticons congratulated. Not only have you returned to me what is mine, you were even thoughtful enough to bring a gift. Now, where is she? Soundwave stood up as his visor showed Nunnally currently held in a prison cell that was normally built for Decepticons, due to its enormous size. But her tiny form was incapable of breaking down through the large metallic doors and walls. I'll take the time to get to know her later. But first, Megatron and Soundwave walked through the nearest door and into Shockwave's laboratory. We have to put the finishing touches to Neo Ragnarok. Shockwave continued to work at a monitor with all the data he had available, while the amnesiac Sarah, who had since woken up, was restrained to a lab table that was normally equipped for mini-cons, the same kind that Suzaku and Vivi were previously restrained to when they each underwent a certain interrogation process that she would soon undergo herself. Sarah struggled fearfully in her restraints, but they showed no signs of budging. Resting comfortably, my dear CC. She gasped in terror as Megatron approached her, his evil face reflected in her widened eyes. Why you're him. You're Megatron, she stuttered. She appears to suffer from amnesia. Shockwave informed his leader. How much memory she has lost remains largely unknown, but she appears to have mentally regressed to her state before she received her code. But the code itself is undamaged? Megatron asked. Correct. Shockwave confirmed. Megatron nodded. Back at the Geass Order, right before I was trapped, I had hoped to completely destroy her mind and put her in a catatonic state. At best, she would have been unable to reveal the details of Ragnarok to our enemies. But even if she had, this would still make it easier for us to capture. I trust you can fix the damage done to her mind, Shockwave. I need to be certain there are no details regarding Ragnarok that I may have overlooked, or that Vivi was not aware of. I can. Shockwave nodded, though the cortical psychic patch has never been used in this manner before. Therefore, it is likely her organic body will likely expire multiple times, as it had with Vivi during his interrogation, so this may take some time. Do what you can, Megatron told him. We are so close to the end, he clenched his fist in anticipation. Sarah was nothing short of terrified. She had been told stories about the monster that was now before her, and while she didn't know all the details, one look in his glowing purple eyes and she could tell that he was pure evil. She had never seen anything like it and it rocked her to her core. But despite that, she tried to put on a brave face. All the amazing people she met, be they made out of squishy flesh or hard metal, none of them would show fear at this monster, so she wouldn't either. Whatever it is you want from me, I won't let you get it. Oh, I think you will, little one. For you are the key to everything. Megatron said as Shockwave had already plugged in one end of the cable for the cortical psychic patch into the back of his head, while the other end surged with electricity and was brought towards her. Let me out. Nunnally cried out as she banged her fists against the metal door. You won't get away with this. Do you hear me? Suddenly, the door opened, causing her to back up as Thundercracker stepped in holding something small in his large hand, which he brought down to the floor, revealing it to be a human-sized bowl with a liquid substance in it. What's this? Nunnally questioned. Liquid protein. Thundercracker answered. You humans need that, right? Where's Sarah? What are you doing to her? Nunnally demanded. Lord Megatron is getting what he needs. Thundercracker said before turning around. I suggest you eat. You won't win this. Nunnally said to him. What can you do? The Blue Seeker replied as he kept his back turned. You don't have a nightmare or a Geass, and there are no Autobots here to help you. You're all alone. There's nothing for you to do but sit down and eat to survive. Thundercracker walked out as the door closed, leaving Nunnally alone again. She looked at the bowl of liquid protein once more before kicking it away, spilling all of its contents in frustration before sitting down as she wrapped her arms around her legs, tucking them close to herself. Nunnally hated to admit it, but that Decepticon was right. She had no special power and she was no fighter. In the face of overwhelming evil, there wasn't anything she could do, and that made her more than a little upset as tears were already forming out of the corner of her eyes. Nunnally probably had a good idea how her brother would react to all this once he finds out, and he won't take it well, and while she was confident Bumblebee, Optimus, Colin, Suzaku, and the rest of their friends and family would be there for him, even their mother, it didn't make it any less hurtful. However, as she glanced to the side, she happened to spot the spilled liquid protein and noticed something shiny inside it. Crawling her way closer, she poked her fingers through the spilled content to find something hard and tiny. Nunnally picked it up and looked in surprise to see it was a small comms device, the kind that can easily fit in someone's ear. Taking a brief moment to look around, no doubt she was being monitored, Nunnally scooped up some of the liquid protein in her hand and kneeled down to make it look like she was eating it before slipping the comm in her ear. Do not speak. Nunnally tried her hardest to suppress the gasp. She recognized Steeljaw's voice in an instant. If you want to live, I will help you to escape. Wait for me. The communication ended. To say Nunnally was surprised would have been an understatement. She only met Steeljaw once, and that was with Layla in the EU, and she could tell at that moment what kind of being he was, and it was one she didn't trust. But this time felt different. While she still didn't trust him, the tone in his voice was far different and more serious. Maybe he was plotting against Megatron. But she doubted it was out of the goodness of his spark. Though given her circumstances, it seemed like the lesser of two evils. So for now, she will follow Steeljaw's lead, if only to give herself, and hopefully the Autobots and Black Knights, a chance to make their move. Meanwhile, a pair of Viacons worked at the controls for Darkmount's fusion cannons. Hey, you wonder what exactly is going on right now? One Viacon asked. What do you mean? I mean, why are we still here on Earth? The first one continued. Most of our forces are either offline or surrendered. Starscream's little coup definitely didn't help, and most of humanity has rallied behind the Autobots. Wouldn't it be best to just cut our losses and leave this mudball behind? You want Megatron to hear that? The second Viacon replied. You know how he is. He'll pulverize us if we question him. But you can't tell me that this isn't weird. The first Viacon told him. What's so special about this tiny little planet that keeps Megatron here? And you know what else is weird? All those space bridge portals. Okay, that part is weird. Viacon number 2 admitted. I don't know where exactly they're going, but all they seem to bring back is scrap metal and just dumping it all around Darkmount. Seems like a waste of energon. Exactly. We need that stuff, too. And you could use a break, too. Both Viacons turned around to see Skybite and Slipstream enter the controls. Go ahead, unwind a bit. But we have to monitor the area, keep the fusion cannons ready for if the Autobots and Black Knights show up. The second Viacon said. We'll handle that. Skybite assured. Come on, give yourselves a break. You've earned it. The pair of Viacons exchanged glances before coming to a decision. Yeah, maybe we should try to relax a bit. Nothing's going on anyways. Thanks Skybite. About time somebody begins to appreciate us. The pair left, leaving only the Sharkticon and female seeker as they went to the controls. If only they knew just how far their leader had fallen. Skybite said with reluctance. Keep it down. We got a job to do right now. Slipstream said as she was the first to get to work, followed by the Sharkticon, quickly pulling up the schematics for the fusion cannons, including its own energon fuel supply. Horai Island, the Ark. All Black Knight and Autobot forces on Horai Island are assembling and preparing for the assault on Darkmount as we speak. TAI reported to Optimus as he stood on the bridge of the fabled Autobot vessel. Layla has gone to the EU to rally their military forces, Shink and Tianzi are doing the same for the Chinese Federation, and Guilford has met up with Duke Villains in Euro-Britannia. Kirihara and the rest of Kyoto are working with all the smaller member nations of the UFN to rally their military forces as well. Thank you, TAI. Inform us the moment we are ready to move. Optimus requested. You got it. TAI nodded before her hologram mode vanished, leaving Optimus to turn to all those that currently occupied the Ark, including his fellow Autobots Bumblebee, RC, Bulkhead, Ironhide, Fix-It, Ratchet, Elita 1, and Ultra Magnus. Several humans were also present such as Lelouch, Colin, Rai, Suzaku, Shirley, Millie, Rivals, Euphemia, Cornelia, Toto, Jeremiah, Ogi, Tamaki, Sayoko, Kagaya, as well as Anya. It may as well be deathly silent for all of them as Lelouch sat on the couch that served as the human living quarters on the bridge for the Ark, and while he appeared to be calm on the surface, those that knew him the best knew that he was far from calm right now. We'll get them back, Lelouch. Suzaku told him. I know. The leader of the Black Knights muttered. After we've killed Megatron and all those working for him. Can we kill him? Isn't the guy immortal, now? Tamaki questioned. That doesn't mean he's invincible, though. Rai answered. VV felt he was and look how that turned out. VV and Megatron are two completely different individuals. Ratchet reminded. One was a psychotic man-child, while the other is a ruthless warlord who knows exactly how to misuse the power he has at his disposal. I'm still trying to figure out how Megatron even got out of that whole dimensional trap you guys put him in. Bulkhead said. For real. Rivals agreed. We had a hard time getting out of the regular shadow zone the first time, but wasn't he stuck inside the shadow zone of another freaking dimension? And we destroyed all the thought elevators. Ogi recalled. Perhaps Soundwave had something to do with it given he's capable of opening ground bridges at will. Toto suggested. And Shockwave likely had a helping hand as well. Ultra Magnus assumed. Given most of his studies were to the subject of Geass, I wouldn't be surprised if he had somehow managed to replicate the thought elevators. Do you know if something like that is even possible, Jeremiah? Euphemia asked the cyborg soldier. I can't say for certain. I'm no scientist, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was truly the case. Jeremiah replied. He was even able to clone a Predacon. Fix-It added. Whenever something we believe to be scientifically impossible, Shockwave continues to prove us wrong. And if Shockwave was able to replicate the thought elevators, then maybe Ragnarok is still a threat. Elita said. All that effort and loss we've gone through during the assault on the Geass Order, and we may have only just delayed it. Bumblebee commented. If Ragnarok is still active, it explains why Soundwave took Sarah when he woke up, but why Nunnally? RC wondered. What does Megatron have to gain from her? It's not like she has anything to do with him. Probably just out of spite. Colin looked in disgust. We all know how cruel he is, especially too. She looked towards Lelouch as he no doubt came to the same conclusion, something that earned a sympathetic look from Lelouch. That was something they all knew very well. Cornelia herself recalled the special zone and how Megatron destroyed Euphemia's image as a means to an end. While there may have been a tactical reason behind it, Cornelia had suspected that it was done out of unnecessary cruelty, something she always hated him for. Just let me make sure I get this right, Shirley spoke up. Ragnarok was supposed to be some kind of Geass project that brings all human minds together like a hive mind. Something like that, Ironhide confirmed. Sounds really complicated, Millie commented. Why would Megatron be interested in that, though? Shirley questioned. I mean, a hive mind for all of humanity seems to be kinda aiming low for him. I would have to agree. Cornelia said. It's no secret that Megatron views humankind as beneath him, so simply trying to subjugate their minds seems to a bit more difficult than just trying to wipe them out. Maybe he thinks we're too tough for that, and we are. Tamaki boasted. I mean, we've been kicking Khan ass since day one. Humanity is but one species in a vast universe. Ratchet countered. I sincerely doubt Megatron would go to all the effort to subjugate one species. Maybe it's not one species, but possibly all of them. Mary Ann suggested, finally speaking and getting everyone's attention. Mother. Lelouch looked towards her in confusion. I have something to say. Mary Ann began. Something I've been meaning to say for a while, and I'd hoped under more ideal circumstances. Darkmount. Nunnally continued to sit and wait in the massive cell, not as though she had many other options. She hated being like this, she hated being so helpless in the dark, just like when she was blinded and confined to that damned wheelchair while the people she loved were fighting for their lives. But despite all that, she was confident that there was still hope. She was so sure that Lelouch, Optimus, and everyone would find a way to stop Megatron and save this world, and they could all go home together. They could build a new home with each other, and even their mother was still with them. She could already imagine it, she could picture her mother having a cloned body and her consciousness transferred from Anya into that body and sitting at a dinner table alongside Lelouch, Colin, Suzaku, Sayoko, Alice, Euphemia, Cornelia, Sarah, Rai, Shirley, and so many others, even Optimus, Bumblebee, RC, Bulkhead, and all the other Autobots, despite not being able to actually eat, or even too big to fit at a human-sized table. That wouldn't be a problem, they could just be outside. That sounded even better, sitting outside and spending time together, gazing at the sunset and then at the beautiful stars when night fell. Just picturing that brought a smile to her face. When the cell door finally opened, Nunnally's smile faded as she found herself glaring at the one monster who dared to shatter her dream, and the dreams of so many others, accompanied by the faceless Decepticon who abducted her, and the scientist who put Alice, Grimlock, Jeremiah, and all their friends through so much pain. But her attention was drawn to the green-haired girl that the monster held in his hand before dropping her to the floor in front of her. Sarah. Nunnally scurried to her and held her close. She appeared to be unconscious before her eyes slowly flickered open. Sarah, are you okay? Nunnally. You'll find that you will have no further issues in communication with her, dear Nunnally. Megatron told her, causing the young girl to glare at him. Thanks to Shockwave's brilliant work, Cece's memories are fully restored. Why you remember everything? Nunnally asked as Sarah slowly picked herself up. Yes, I do, she confirmed. Died probably 8 times before my mind was restored completely though. The cynical tone in her voice was confirmation enough to know that Chera's memories had indeed been restored, and while Nunnally would normally be overjoyed, what Megatron had just did to her was beyond cruel. Do you want me to say thank you? Nunnally glared at the Decepticon leader. I doubt you did that for her sake. I needed to be sure there were no details regarding Ragnarok that were overlooked. Megatron answered. And it seems there was no further knowledge to gain. I had already learned everything I needed to know from the late Victor Z. Britannia. Though your mother's survival was a surprise, it really matters not. So why am I here? Nunnally questioned. Do you intend to threaten Lelouch? Hold me hostage until he meets your demands. You are very much at the center of your brother's life, but your presence here is nothing of the sort, my dear Nunnally. Megatron responded. I just felt that, given the history the two of us share with many certain individuals, it would only be fitting that the two of us finally get to know one another. I already know everything I need to know about you. Nunnally stated. You destroyed your own home planet, killed countless innocent Cybertronians and humans. You betrayed Optimus, you ripped out Bumblebee's voice box, you manipulated Suzaku, you used Euphemia's face to start a massacre, and what you did to Lelouch, I swear, I will hate you forever for what you did to him. To all of them. Megatron looked more amused than anything at that declaration. You have your brother's defiance, and Optimus' nobility. It's difficult to believe you are the daughter of Charles and Mary Ann. Go ahead and compare me to my father all you want, I don't care about him. Nunnally said. But don't you dare say my mother's name. You don't deserve to say her name. Even though she is just as cruel and manipulative as your father. Megatron mused. What are you talking about? Nunnally questioned while Sarah looked away in guilt. You really haven't told her, have you? Megatron asked the immortal woman specifically. And can I assume that Lelouch doesn't know either? Does anyone? Told me what? Nunnally questioned once again. You know of Ragnarok, CC has told you of that. I know that much from patching memories back together, but did she tell you that Marianne, your mother, was actually one Ragnarok's grand architects? Megatron revealed. You expect me to believe that? Nunnally exclaimed. You expect me to believe anything I say? If you don't believe me, just ask her. Megatron gestured to Sarah once more. Go on, CC. She deserves to know. Sarah, it's alright, I know he's lying, you don't have to worry. Nunnally spoke to her, but when she turned towards her, she was confused to see Sarah looking down with a guilty expression. Sarah, he is lying, right? Now she was starting to look nervous, and that nervousness grew even more when Sarah still didn't answer. Right. She closed her eyes and took a slight breath before speaking. He's not. Nunnally's eyes widened to the point that they were almost completely round, her pupils shrinking. Ragnarok was conceived by Charles, Victor, CC, and Marianne together. Megatron explained. They had hoped that by uniting humanity's minds into one, they would create the peaceful world they wanted. But Victor grew jealous of Charles's relationship with Marianne and assassinated her, setting you up as the witness no less, with Charles using his Geass to alter your memories and blind you. Though Victor lied and said that he wasn't the one who did it, Charles knew the truth, he easily saw through him. That and Marianne's Geass, given to her by CC, allowed her to escape into the body of Anya Alström upon her death. You and your brother were sent to Japan, not as bargaining tools, but Charles and Marianne's deluded desire to protect you from VV, and it was no secret that he despised you too as much as he did your mother. It was then that Charles planned to take his brother's code, while Marianne initially wanted CC to pass her code onto her so they could initiate Ragnarok together, but CC had abandoned them. Coincidentally, she fled to Japan. The purpose of Japan's invasion was not just to acquire the thought elevator station there, but to potentially use you and your brother as pawns to draw CC out. Though the invasion would have likely resulted in both your deaths, they assumed nothing of it because they believed they would reunite with you once Ragnarok had begun. Megatron chuckled. Oh, the irony is wonderful. Sarah watched with sorrow and regret as Nunnally had fallen to her hands and knees and let all that sink in. I'm sorry, Sarah told her as tears formed in her eyes. I thought by not telling you, I was sparing you. I thought you were better off not knowing the truth. Nunnally had clenched her hands on her head. Her mother was a part of this. Exclamation mark. All this time, the same loving face that had tucked her in and kissed her whenever she went to sleep, who always played with her and her brother as children, who gazed up at the stars with them and Yuffie and even Cornelia as kids, she had been using her and Lelouch for Ragnarok since the beginning. Question mark. The invasion that would have claimed their lives, that set Lelouch on his path of revenge and later justice that would lead to so much pain for all their friends and loved ones, Marianne was responsible for that. No, it couldn't be true. It just couldn't. Nunnally couldn't stop herself from screaming and crying as she fell to the ground. All her defiance and inner strength crumbled, and she was left a sobbing mess. Sarah tried to reach out and comfort her, but she found herself unable to do so. How could she provide any kind of comfort after hiding a secret like that? She should have told Nunnally and Lelouch sooner. She hated herself for not doing so, but none of that compared to the hate she felt towards Megatron in that one moment as she directed her teary hateful glare at him. Do not fret, my dear Nunnally. Megatron sneered evilly. We stand a great moment in time. Neo Ragnarok, which will unite all life, and all will in the known universe under me, is at hand. And you, dear child, have the privilege of witnessing it firsthand. He was about to reach forward and grab them both. Lord Megatron. Thundercracker, what is it? The Lord of the Decepticons exclaimed with a growl over the comms. What could possibly be so urgent that his absolute victory would be delayed? The fusion cannons are overloading. Thundercracker exclaimed. What? Megatron questioned as Soundwave's visor lit up to show a diagram of Darkmount's fusion cannon suffering from an energon overload. We're trying to contain it, but we need help. They could blow at any moment. Thundercracker reported. Lord Megatron, if the fusion cannons overload, the resulting explosion could deal a devastating blow to Darkmount's infrastructure. Shockwave told him. The destabilization could potentially spread to the artificial thought elevator and cripple our plans. Megatron growled in frustration. He was so close. So close. Then let us see that it does not happen. Soundwave, Shockwave, come with me. They turned to leave, but Megatron paid one more glance to his captives. A temporary reprieve. You two are mine, now. With that, Megatron had left the cell, with he, Soundwave, and Shockwave both running as fast as they could down the halls to halt the potential catastrophe. Unaware that a certain wolf-like Decepticon was around the corner on the other end of the hall. Once he saw the three were long gone, he quickly made his way to the cell door and opened it, revealing his presence to the prisoners. Though Nunnally was still in the same state as before, Sarah looked in confusion but still glared at him suspiciously. Come with me, Steeljaw urged as he transformed into his vehicle mode and opened the door. But neither of them moved. You want to live? Then let's go. Why should we trust you? Sarah glared. Because we don't have a choice, Nunnally said in a slightly hushed tone as she picked herself back up, somewhat shakily. We have to go. Now. Nunnally, Sarah, everything else can wait. Nunnally grabbed her hand. Let's just get out of here. The immortal nodded. Now was not the time to wallow in guilt, they had to leave quickly. They entered Steeljaw's vehicle mode as he drove out of the cell and into the hallways. You do have a plan, right? Sarah asked. Of course, Steeljaw answered. Who do you think I am? Starscream. The Ark, Horai Island. Marianne had everyone's attention as she chose her next words very carefully. You already know of Ragnarok, how Charles and Vivi wanted to use it to unite humanity under a single consciousness, and how CC. Sarah. Bumblebee interrupted. Her name is Sarah. Right. How? Sarah was a part of it. Marianne took a deep breath. Well, she wasn't the only one. I was also a part of it. Nobody, no human or Autobot, could ever expect those words to come from her mouth as they all looked in absolute and clear shock. What? Ratchet exclaimed. It can't be. Cornelia stated. No way. Rivals stated. It must have been Father's Geass, right? Euphemia hoped with an expression that seemed to be that of assurance and nervousness. He altered your memories to help him. No, there was no Geass involved. Marianne revealed. I helped them of my own accord. She took a brief look around and saw expressions of surprise on many of their faces while also serious glares, but when she looked at her son, his eyes were widened as his mouth hung open and his face became pale. Too late to turn back, they had to know everything. When I came into the picture, Charles and I had planned that he would take his brother's code, and I would take Cheraz and we would initiate Ragnarok together. But, Vivi became jealous of mine and Charles's relationship, so he tried to kill me, but he didn't know about my Geass or its abilities. This let me escape into Anya's body while Nunnally was set up as the witness. Charles's Geass rendered her blind and he had altered Lelouch's memories to cover up Vivi's act. But he saw through Vivi's intent as my assassination was not part of the plan. My body was preserved so that if I had the chance, I could transfer back from Anya. Only when she would die, right? RC glared as her metallic fist clenched up. Right. Marianne confirmed regrettably. Lelouch and Nunnally weren't sent to Japan as bargaining tools, but because Charles wanted to keep them away from Vivi. Sarah had already escaped from us as well, but the Geass order had tracked her to Japan, so Charles ordered the invasion, not just to secure the thought elevator, but to lure Sarah out because, despite her pessimism, she did have a soft spot for children. But even if they died, she gulped as she forced herself to keep going. Our agents could find her eventually and we'd reunite with them in Ragnarok. There it was. The bomb had been dropped. They all knew the truth. Shirley gasped as she, Bumblebee, Suzaku, Euphemia, Fix-It, Bulkhead, Rivals, Millie, and especially Jeremiah all looked in clear shock, borderline horror. Colin, Sayoko, Rai, RC, Ratchet, Alita, Ultra Magnus, Ogi, Toto, Ironhide, Cornelia, Kagaya, and Tamaki all glared hard at her. Optimus' expression was certainly one of surprise, but he paid a glance towards Lelouch, who lowered his head slightly with his hair covering his eyes, making it impossible to see his own expression. That is messed up, Tamaki shouted. L lady, M Marianne, how could you? Euphemia was brought to tears. Why you lied to us, used us, just as father did, everything was a lie. Cornelia shouted in anger. The reason you attacked our home, was just to use your own kids. Ogie growled. Do you have any idea how many people have died? Friends, families, children, countless lives were ruined because of you and your petty dreams. Toto stated. The only reason he didn't cut Marianne down right now was because he'd also be killing an innocent child and he would never cross that line. That was something that Sayoko felt as well as it took all her willpower to keep her from throwing a kunai in between the eyes. Even your own children, Kagaya muttered angrily. How could you do that to your own kids? Bulkhead questioned. How could you throw them away like that? My family died because of you. Rai looked ready to leap out and throttle her, but rivals, Millie, and Shirley were quick to try and hold him back. You, Colin practically gnashed her teeth. You sit in the same room as the people whose lives you ruin. You eat with us, laugh with us, act like you're one of us. How very much like a Decepticon. Ultra Magnus looked with a glare. Marianne only hung her head down as she knew she deserved all of this. I'm sorry. The next thing she heard was a roar from Lelouch, followed by his fist connecting to her face, which sent her crashing to the ground. That's when everyone saw his face. They saw the look of pure and unbridged rage in his eyes, the tears that flowed down, and the bared teeth. When it seemed like he was ready to strangle her, Suzaku quickly moved in to restrain his enraged friend. Lelouch, that's Anya's body. Suzaku shouted. You have every reason to feel the way you do, but Anya didn't ask for any of this. She's a victim too. Don't take it out on her. That seemed to get Lelouch to stop his violent rage, but his anger was still present as he glared at Anya's body as Marianne picked it back up to rub her sore cheek. It was for you, Lelouch said with a glare. One of the reasons I became Zero was to avenge you. Because out of everyone in the homeland, out of all the plotting and scheming to take throne, you provided us shelter. I always felt at home when you were there, holding us. I thought you would protect us. You even welcomed Euphemia and Cornelia into our house like they were your own. You treated them with just as kindness and compassion as Nunnally and I, but we were all just tools for you. You, my own mother, you abandoned us. You left us to die. Seeing the look of hate and heartbreak in her son's eyes made her own heart shatter, but Marianne knew Lelouch had every right to feel that way. He was not the only one. She happened to glance towards Jeremiah as he couldn't even bear to look at her in the eye. I pledged my loyalty to you, I vowed to give everything in service to you, even my life. And somewhere down the line, I even fell in love with you. I would do anything to protect you. I thought I failed in that duty, and it's haunted me ever since. But, I see that I never truly failed, I was just loyal to the wrong master. I've made many mistakes in my life, but pledging my loyalty to you was the worst mistake of them all. Those cold words cut deep. They may seem calm on the surface from his tone, but Jeremiah may have dealt the most painful set of words he could ever hope to muster, and they truly did hurt. As Marianne lowered her head, prepared to accept more righteous hate, a calm and collected voice may have broken through the fog of rage that had been lowered. Enough. Optimus Prime drew everyone's attention. Marianne's actions are indeed vile, and you all have every reason to feel the way you do, but all this will have to wait. For what truly matters now, is stopping Megatron. So, do what you have to do to prepare, for we begin our assault on Darkmount as soon as possible. Direct and focus all your rage onto that one goal, and we will no doubt succeed. Every person in bot there had a right to feel the anger and betrayal they all currently did. But just like every time, Optimus' words had managed to reach their inner spirit and were enough to at least get them to focus back on the main task. Yeah, I got plenty of rage alright. Tamaki muttered. So, I'll shove it right up the metal asses of every con I see. He pounded his fist into his palm. You're not the only one. Cornelia agreed. Ogie nodded towards Optimus as he turned to his fellow Black Knights. You all heard the man. Let's load up. One by one, most of the Autobots and Black Knights prepared to leave the area, many of the humans getting rides from the bots in their vehicle modes. Ratchet took in Fix-It, Ultra Magnus provided a ride for Kagaya and Toto. Everyone else happened to pay concerning glances towards Lelouch's Suzaku let him go, but rather than go with Bumblebee as he normally would, Lelouch walked away from the living quarters and went in some random direction. "I'll handle it," Colin said to everyone else remaining, including Lelouch's siblings, her friends on the former student council, her childhood friend Inogi and comrade in arms Suzaku, even her Autobot friends, notably RC, Bumblebee, and Optimus. RC nodded in understanding as she watched her partner follow Lelouch before transforming to provide Cornelia a ride. Rai, Shirley, Millie, and Rivals pilled in Bulkhead before he left in his own vehicle mode. Ogi and Tamaki got inside Ironhide with the latter slamming the door shut. Suzaku and Euphemia were the last to leave with Bumblebee as he drove off. "Suzaku, Bumblebee, do you think Lelouch is going to be okay?" Yuffie asked with worry. "I can't imagine how he must be feeling. He's taking it rough like always." Suzaku answered, his voice indicating he too was very concerned. Knowing him, he'll probably try to bottle it up and just let it all out on Megatron when he sees him. Colin will probably help him inventing it out. Bumblebee added. "But what's important is that we're all there for him, like always." Of course. Yuffie nodded in understanding. She knew that Lelouch would be going through a hard time, but she was grateful that he had so many friends and people who loved him that would help him get through the darkness, and that included her. She would be there for him no matter what. All that was left on the bridge were Optimus, Alita, Sayoko, and Marianne, still in control of Anya's body, as she pushed herself back up to stand. She glanced towards the three of them, and while Alita and Sayoko kept their glares, she didn't see any kind of resentment in Optimus' optics, even though she was certain he'd hate her just as much as everyone. "Is there something you want to ask? I want to know why," Optimus said, causing Marianne to look in surprise. "Why would you assist with Ragnarok? Why'd put your children and so many others through such turmoil?" Marianne looked away in shame. "Would it really matter if I did tell you?" "Yes, it would," Alita responded immediately. "You don't just decide you want to go along with something like that without a reason." "So, what's the reason?" "Nunnally always spoke very highly of you," Sayoko muttered, her voice laced with anger as she continued to glare down hard. "The memories she shared with me were that of a kind and loving mother who gave her life to protect her flesh and blood. So, tell us, why you would be willing to sacrifice and betray such a pure and innocent soul for the ambitions of a madman." Marianne didn't quite answer right away. "How much of my past do you know?" "Only that you were a commoner by birth," Optimus answered. "My parents died when I was very young, I barely even remember them." Marianne began. "I grew up in an orphanage in the Britannian homeland. When I was 9 though, I was adopted by a noble family. But they didn't do it out of the kindness of their heart, no. They did it to give some motivation to their own daughter." "Motivation?" Optimus asked. "Someone to compete with her." Marianne explained. "If a commoner is capable of doing great things, then she should be able to exceed those same expectations. My sister's name was Elizabeth. We attended the same school together growing up. Her parents made arrangements that we would be in the same classes together, just so that they could compare our progress. They told me to try my best for their daughter or I'd be thrown out on the street. So yeah, I did the best I could, but that was only to be expected of me, while Elizabeth's performance was always met with praise. And when I did something better, like get a better grade, she'd insult and yell at me, accuse me of cheating. I'd be scolded by her mother or even beaten by her father. Living in that house was hell." Optimus, Alita, and Sayoko continued to listen, even though the latter two kept up their glares. "We enrolled in the military boarding academy together too, when we were teenagers." Marianne continued. "That's when I met Charles, who was a prince at the time. He'd often come to see how the students performed, possibly even pick some to be trained as his personal guard. He took a special interest in me, especially when we started working with nightmare simulators. Elizabeth wasn't exactly the practical type and could never handle physical training, but I could. Guess all those physical beatings made me stronger." A slight chuckle escaped her lips. "I was better than her at something and it drove her crazy. One examination in particular, in which we used simulated nightmares, was concocted with the purpose of Charles selecting those to move up in a more advanced academy to train and serve as potential knights of the round. I passed with flying colors, and he said I would be going with him, while Elizabeth failed. I'd impressed a member of the royal family, but more importantly, I'd be getting out of the hell that was my adoptive family. I honestly never felt so happy. But something happened, didn't it? Alita assumed. Mary Ann's smile faded. Later that night, when I was asleep, Elizabeth and two of her friends snuck into my room. Before I knew it, they had taped my mouth shut and tried to tie me up. They were going to sneak me away from the academy and kill me, all out of spite and jealousy. As I struggled, Elizabeth looked me dead in the eye and said that I was commoner filth, and nobody would ever notice me when I was gone. I would disappear and vanish like it was nothing. I snapped. I fought back with everything I had and I killed them all. I stabbed one of them with the fragments of a glass mirror, slashed the other's throat with one, and smothered Elizabeth with my pillow. Mary Ann shook as she recalled that memory very clearly. But when it was all over, I thought that was it for me. I had killed 3 students, one being a high-ranking nobility no less. I'd be expelled at least and executed at worst. But Charles had arrived and used his Geass on all the students and staff at the academy to alter their memories, make it look like Elizabeth and her friends had committed suicide. That's when I learned about Geass. And then he brought you into his inner circle. Sayoko said. He'd introduce me to his brother and CC, tell me of his plans to change this cruel and unforgiving world. Mary Ann continued. I didn't quite join right away, and he seemed lenient about it. Though CC did offer a contract with me, which I didn't accept right away either, but she kept the offer open. When I became part of Charles's royal guard a year later, I joined him on his expeditions, or conquests, of areas across the world, and I saw more and more bloodshed, fighting and betrayal. I saw what I had come to believe was human nature, to fight and to kill. That's when I came to believe that humanity was beyond salvation, so I accepted CC's contract and joined Charles in his efforts to create a better world. How did you feel when you had Lelouch and Nunnally? Alita asked. Mary Ann's face was a mixture of happiness and regret. When I held each of them in my arms, it was like a ball of light shined in me. I loved them both, but I also feared for them, feared that the world they were born into would ultimately destroy them. That only further motivated me to help Charles in finishing Ragnarok, so that they would have a world that did deserve them. Someone did destroy them, but it wasn't the people of this world. It was their father. Sayoko glared. And their mother. She made no effort to deny it any longer but continued on. After Charles died and Britannia fell, our plans for Ragnarok came to an end, and everything we did was for nothing. Mary Ann looked towards Optimus. I blamed you for that you stole my children, but I was such a fool, and after seeing so many people come together to try and fix this world, I realized just how wrong Charles and I really were. You and everyone else here, human and Autobot, are more family to them than I ever was. She tried to wipe away her tears, feeling she didn't deserve to even cry. I know I have no right to say this, but thank you for looking after them, Optimus Prime. Optimus really should be angry with Mary Ann, and a part of him did indeed feel that way after everything, but that was not the only thing he felt. What you did to Lelouch and Nunnally was cruel, and they have every reason to hate you. Optimus told her, causing Mary Ann to look down even more. However, by choosing to come here and admitting to your crimes, you have chosen to take a path of atonement. I have seen many times that those who are cruel, those who place their own pride and goals above everything else, have the capacity for change, and have indeed changed for the better. If it is atonement that you seek, Mary Ann, then you must pledge yourself to that. Give everything you have for not only your children, but all the lives that were damaged by your ambitions, including young Anya's. It was easy to see why Lelouch and Nunnally looked up to and admired Optimus so. He saw the best in people and encouraged it. Not long ago, she'd consider that train of thought to be naive and foolish, just as Charles would. But now, after seeing such a positive impact on so many people, how it even brought former enemies together, such a thing made her believe that there was indeed hope for this world, hope to create something better without the use of Geass. I will. Mary Ann vowed. I will give everything I have, to set things right. Colin had followed the sound of grunting and pounding on metal as she continued to walk down the halls. It wasn't long till she got to the source of it all. It was Lelouch, pounding his fists on the nearest wall. He couldn't even wait to get to his own personal quarters to vent out his frustrations. Who could blame him? Colin watched in sympathy as Lelouch acted more or less like a violent animal, grunting as he continued to pound angrily. Lelouch, she tried to speak to him, but he didn't seem to notice her right away. Lelouch, she stepped forward and that's when she could see tiny patches of blood along the walls. It was time to step in. Lelouch, stop. She grabbed both of his hands and pulled him away, causing him to finally turn towards her. His face was ragged, like he was trying hard to push down all his warring emotions in front of her. She looked down toward his gloved hands to see that they were torn up. She took them off to see there was already blood on his knuckles and the sides of his hands, but she gripped them gently as she looked at him in the eyes. "I'm so sorry." Those 3 words caused whatever was left of Lelouch's walls to collapse as the tears all came out and he fell into Colin's arms. She lowered herself as he sobbed and held him close. "Don't be Zero right now," she told him. "Just let it all out, let yourself fall apart, and I'll help you stand back up." Colin consoled as Lelouch reached up to grasp her tightly. "I'm here for you, we're all here for you." Darkmount. The fusion cannon's control room was in near chaos as Megatron, Shockwave, Soundwave, Thundercracker, Slipstream, and Skybite did everything they could to prevent the overload of the fusion cannons. Alarms blared as the screens turned red, the power core at the center fluctuating uncontrollably. "We have to divert the energon flow," Thundercracker stated as he was at the controls. "Where to? We can't just dump it all somewhere. And there's too much build-up," Slipstream argued. Maybe sabotaging the cannons wasn't such a good idea. Skybite thought to himself. It did seem like a good distraction at the time to get Megatron, Shockwave, and Soundwave away from the human prisoners so Steeljaw could make his move, but he was in no mood to get blown up. Though if the cannons did overload, it could potentially destroy the artificial thought elevator and end the threat of Neo Ragnarok, but at the cost of his own life. A price that Skybite would be willing to pay, but he didn't have to like it. Skybite was shoved aside as Megatron went to the controls. "Shockwave, Soundwave, divert all the access energon to the dark underground channels below." "A wise course of action, Lord Megatron." Shockwave approved as he quickly pressed the necessary key commands on the console in front of him, with Soundwave and Megatron doing the same. The 2 Seekers and Sharkticon watched as the power core began to stabilize, and the alarms slowly faded to silence. The monitors showed all the excess energon being diverted from the fusion cannons directly to the underground beneath the fortress. "The fusion's cannons are stable," Shockwave reported. "Excellent," Megatron said with relief. "Dark underground channels?" Slipstream questioned, having never heard that phrase before. "Care to let us in on that?" Megatron looked to Soundwave and nodded, prompting the silent Decepticon to display a hologram of the Darkmount fortress and the surrounding area, even showing artificially made channels that stretched from the bottom of the tower all around the underground, with an enormous cluster of what appeared to be scrap metal surrounding the whole fortress. "Underneath the ground surrounding this fortress are channels of dark energon," Megatron explained. "With the excess energon from the cannons being diverted down there, all that energon will be corrupted and simply add to the dark substance." "Why exactly do you have all that dark energon down there?" Thundercracker asked. "We had anticipated Starscream and Schneisel would betray us," Shockwave responded, "even with the possibility of them turning half the Decepticon forces against us. Their recent attempt at a coup, with the additional losses suffered from our frequent battles against the Autobots and Black Knights, have left our own forces greatly diminished. Which is why I had arranged for multiple spacebridge transportations to Cybertron, in which already over 5,000 Cybertronian carcasses have been brought here, connecting directly to our constructed channels," Megatron revealed. Thundercracker, Slipstream, and Skybite's optics all widened as they realized what he was implying. "You mean to replace our ranks with Terracons?" Skybite looked nothing short of horrified. That last battle in the former Area 11 was merely a test to see if the blood of Unicron would indeed raise an army of the dead. Megatron replied. "Now that we know it is a possibility, we have the means to protect ourselves for when our enemy attacks." That sneer caused the 3 defectors to look extremely nervous. Megatron was really pulling out all the stops to ensure his Neo Ragnarok plan would be complete. Looks like things just got a whole lot more difficult for them. "Wait, a virus?" Rivals asked as he, RC, Suzaku, Bulkhead, Shirley, Rai, and Millie were in the Nightmare Bay where every human and Autobot present was working to ready any and all nightmares and weapons for the coming siege, with the group standing before Ratchet, Nina, Knockout, Lloyd, Rakshata, and Cecile, all of whom had been presently working on the Lancelot, Gurren, and Raiden. Yep, Lloyd confirmed in his usual giddy state. A real nasty one too. So, what does this virus do? Rai questioned. Well, Lloyd here happened to have told me about that little virus you installed in Laserbeak to transfer the Yakin database from the Nemesis to your base. Knockout began. You told him about that? RC questioned the scientist with a look of irritation on her face. Of course, we're all on the same side now. Lloyd smiled. That said, Knockout came up with a rather ingenious idea that could neutralize Soundwave. Rakshata said, getting all their attention. Using the source code from the original virus as a base, we already have the means to create a new one that can allow us to tap directly into Soundwave. Ratchet explained. In using what data we could get from our initial scan when he was our prisoner, we believe we can use this virus to disconnect him from his internal spacebridge program, depriving him of that annoying ability of his to just zap out of trouble. Lloyd said enthusiastically. Bulkhead chuckled. If it means he and Megatron can't make a quick getaway, I'd say I'm all for it. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty genius. Shirley smiled as well. Why only his ability to make portals? Suzaku asked. Why not just have the virus shut him down entirely? Because we didn't get a good enough look at his internal systems while we had him. Nina answered. We only peeked at his spacebridge systems because of its strategic importance. Not to mention our resources were divided trying to subject him to a cortical psychic patch. Cecile added. We're making do with what we have. Why do I have a feeling there's some kind of catch to this? RC assumed. The catch is that the virus has to be directly uploaded into Soundwave himself. Ratchet answered. As in, we need to make physical contact with his body. You're kidding, right? Rai questioned. How the hell are we supposed to do that if even our most skilled can barely touch the guy? Ah, that's where your nightmares come in. Knockout revealed. I've already uploaded the virus code directly into the Gurren's and Raiden's respective mainframes. All you have to do is touch him with those fancy serger claws of yours and the virus will automatically upload in less than a second. We wanted to put the virus in the hands of our top-tier pilots after all. Rakshata said. I trust Colin and Rai will be more than up to the task. Just touch him with the serger claw. That's it? Rai asked. That's it. Ratchet confirmed. Don't worry partner, you know I got your back. Bulkhead assured Rai with a smile and a thumbs up, who returned the gesture himself. What about Suzaku, here? Rivals asked. He's one of our top nightmare pilots. True, but knowing our knight in shining armor here, he has his sights on another target, right Suzaku? Lloyd asked knowingly. Suzaku himself nodded as a serious look formed on his face. I've known Lelouch and Optimus long enough to know they will do everything in their power to stop him, and I plan to be there by their side. He wanted to make a killer out of me. I intend for him to face that killer. I don't care if he's immortal. A fire of determination and righteous vengeance formed in his eyes. For the sake of this world, and beyond, Megatron must be destroyed. Back on the bridge of the Ark, a holographic image of Darkmount was displayed as Optimus and Alita tried to come up with a plan, while Sayoko and Anya were present as well. Their attention was soon drawn as Lelouch and Colin joined them, the former looking somewhat flustered, having just let out a great deal of emotion no doubt with the latter being by his side to support him, but he still seemed to be standing. Lelouch, Optimus began. Nunnally and Sarah need our help right now, that's what matters. Lelouch quickly said. Everything else can wait. Optimus could tell that even though Colin had helped Lelouch get much of his anguish out, he was still reeling from the revelations, but had chose to put them to the side due to the lack of time they probably had, which was probably the more strategic choice. He looked towards Colin, who gave a nod of confirmation to silently say that he was ready, to which he nodded back. Colin felt a hand on her shoulder and looked to see Sayoko smile at her gratefully. Thank you, she said sincerely, which Colin appreciated with a smile. Lelouch then walked towards Anya, not sure who was in control at the moment. Which one am I talking to, right now? Anya Alstrheim. The girl confirmed, though she can come out if you need to say something to her. I've said all I needed to say to her. Lelouch replied with some anger in his voice, but it was quickly replaced with remorse as he spoke to Anya directly. But I wanted to apologize to you, Anya. I shouldn't have hit you, I'm sorry. No, I understand. You had every right to be mad, Anya assured, showing no hard feelings. That said, when we begin our attack, I want you by my side, Lelouch said. To keep an eye on her? Anya asked. Partly, but also because I know you probably want to help tear it all down too, Lelouch replied. We're both victims of Geass, so it's only fitting that we work together to tear it down. He offered his hand to the younger girl. What do you say? Anya looked at his hand before smiling and accepting the gesture as she clasped her hand with his. I accept. Got room for one more. Bumblebee's vehicle mode quickly entered the bridge, his driver's door opening to allow Alice to step out before the scout transformed, allowing him to quickly pick up Alice and put her on the same level as Lelouch and the other humans. Bumblebee told me everything, Alice said as she looked to Lelouch with concern. Are you okay? I'm probably not, Lelouch admitted. But I'm alright enough for this, and I at least have a good idea where to aim it all. He saw that Alice's eyes were red and her face was a mess. It was no surprise that she was probably in emotional turmoil when she found out Nunnally had been kidnapped, causing Lelouch to mentally kick himself for not thinking about how Alice felt given how close she and Nunnally were. He put a hand on her shoulder. We'll get her back, I promise. I know. Alice put her hand on his own as she sniffled a bit. She means everything, to both of us. Lelouch nodded before looking towards Optimus and Alita. How soon are we ready to deploy? We're ready to move in at any moment, Alita informed. All our own forces, as well as those of Euro-Britannia, the EU, Chinese Federation, and all military from the member nations of the UFN can move in immediately. We even have a means to transport everyone there at once. The only issue are those fusion cannons. They are of the same as those that were equipped on Damocles, so it stands to reason they are capable of just as much destruction, Optimus explained. But that is not all, our scans have indicated there is a vast amount of dark energon surrounding the fortress as well. Why am I not surprised? Lelouch replied. He's digging himself in very deep. Probably because he knows we can crush him. And that's what we're going to do, Colin stated. If we can take out those cannons though, that gives us a huge advantage, Bumblebee said. We just need Optimus. 0. TAI suddenly appeared before all of them. I'm getting an urgent communication. It's from Nunnally and Sarah. Lelouch and Alice looked especially surprised and emotional, but Alita spoke up first with caution. Is it really them? Or is it another one of Soundwave's tricks? It's them, I've confirmed it, TAI replied before patching them through. Hello? Is anyone there? Hearing Nunnally's voice caused Lelouch to feel a great sense of relief. Nunnally, I'm here. We hear you. Are you alright? Alice asked urgently. Is Sarah with you? Optimus asked as well. I'm here, we're fine, for now anyway. Sarah spoke up as well. Where are you? Sayoko asked. We're on the move with Steeljaw right now, Nunnally answered. Steeljaw? Bumblebee questioned. It's a temporary alliance, and we don't have any other options right now, Sarah stated. Lelouch recognized the tone in Chera's voice. It wasn't one of a frightened girl like before, but a serious woman who knew how to keep in control of her emotions. Sarah, are your memories back? Yes, they are, but that's not important right now, Sarah quickly said. Listen, Megatron has constructed an artificial thought elevator beneath Darkmount. That's how he escaped from the Shadow Zone and the Sword of Akasha, and it's also how he plans to initiate his own version of Ragnarok. Megatron has combined the thought elevator with spacebridge technology and intends to not only assimilate human life, but Cybertronian and all other forms of sentient life throughout the whole universe. He'll control all and all will, he'll become nothing short of a god if he succeeds. Everyone on the bridge looked in clear horror at that implication. Lelouch, Colin, Bumblebee, Alita, Sayoko, Alice, Anya, and even Optimus were nothing short of shocked. Even Marianne within Anya was beyond horrified. She would never imagine Ragnarok being used to such an extreme. Steeljaw's working with a few others to try and help us, Nunnally said. They've already taken down the fusion cannons, temporarily anyway, but Megatron will have an army of those Terrorcon zombies waiting for you. Please, you have to hurry. We will be there, Optimus assured. Stay safe, we are coming for you. The communication line then ended. Can't we get them out with a ground bridge? Alice questioned. We're still getting interference surrounding Darkmount that prevents us from bridging directly inside, TAI responded. The closest we can get is 10 kilometers of the fortress, but that's it. You would think Steeljaw would try and sabotage that too. Colin muttered. The cannons are down though, and that still gives us a huge advantage, at least right now. Bumblebee said. We need to move in, now. Alita stated. If what they said is true, and Megatron has made Ragnarok into a universal threat, then we can't wait any longer. Then we won't. Lelouch clenched his fist firmly. Give the call to all our forces. We're launching a full-scale assault on Darkmount immediately. Shockwave typed away at the console within the fusion cannon's control room to assess the damage, while Megatron, Soundwave, Thundercracker, Slipstream, and Skybite observed. Well, Megatron asked. Though an overload has been prevented, the system's coolant has been overheated. Shockwave reported. The cannons are offline and need to be rebooted before they are ready to fire again. How long will that take? Megatron questioned. The reboot is already in progress, and it will be completed within 1 Earth hour. Shockwave informed. However, I suspect this incident was not a mere coincidence. Oh, Megatron queried as Thundercracker, Slipstream, and Skybite exchanged nervous glances. The Energon containment protocols have been overridden. Shockwave revealed, turning around to face his master. This no accident, but sabotage. Sabotage? Slipstream questioned, trying to feign innocence. Could the Autobots have infiltrated our base? Illogical. Shockwave countered. It was likely one of our own. Megatron thought for a moment before he realized something. All this happened just as he was about to initiate Neo Ragnarok. His eyes widened with shock as he turned to Soundwave. Where are the prisoners? Soundwave's visor activated to reveal real-time footage of the cell that Sarah and Nunnally were previously kept in, only to show that it was empty. What? Megatron exclaimed. Soundwave then rewound the footage until he got to a specific point where a certain wolf-like Decepticon had arrived to take the prisoners. Steeljaw lives. Find him. Track him down. CC must not escape. Megatron was about to march off before he got an alert on the comms. Lord Megatron. It's Prime. And Zero. They're here. A single ground bridge portal opened on the barren ground as Optimus Prime was the first to emerge, the Star Saber and Sky Boom shield both quipped to his back before he was followed by a select few individuals. This included Lelouch as he piloted the Shinkiro with Sayoko sitting in the co-pilot seat behind him, Bumblebee, Suzaku in the Lancelot, RC, Colin in the Gurren, Bulkhead, Rai in the Raiden, Ironhide, Anya in the Mordred, and even Ratchet was present. All of them gazed not only at the Tower of Darkmount, but the empty 10 kilometers of land that stretched between them, and the seemingly countless Cybertronian corpses that laid scattered and piled. It feels so long ago, that I met this very team of Autobots, that changed my life forever. Lelouch thought. I sought their aid to create a better world for my sister, and now it is that very same team that will rescue her. Well, almost all of them. He happened to glance in the direction of the Gurren as well as RC as they stood next to one another. You brought us this far, now we're going to end it. For you, Naoto, and you, Cliff. Colin thought. Dreadwing, you gave everything so that I could have a chance to live with the people I care about, Suzaku thought. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. We'll win this, and I'll spend every day of my life with the people I love. Your sacrifice hasn't been in vain, nor will it ever be. Mother, Marina, whatever happens, I want you to know, I haven't forgotten either of you. Rai thought about his late family. I wish you were here now, but I know you're gone. But I'm not alone anymore. I have a new family, new friends, and I swear I will fight like hell to protect them all. This is it. Anya communicated with the only other person occupying her body. I can count on you. We started this together, Anya. So, let us end it together. Marianne vowed. You have all grown and come so far since I've met each and every one of you. Optimus turned around to speak to his team directly. You've all struggled, you've all suffered, and have even come close to losing yourselves, but you've all stayed strong, you've become stronger and rediscovered what you felt you no longer had. If this is to be our final battle, I could not think of a worthier family to fight beside. It has been an honor serving with you all. The honor has been all ours, Optimus. Bumblebee said with a smile. I've always been kicking tail by your side, wouldn't be right if I sat this one out. Ironhide said to one of his oldest friends. Humankind hasn't been the best of species, but I've come to believe that it is still a species worth fighting for, and living with. Ratchet also said, even if we failed Cybertron, I will not fail Earth. I don't know about humankind altogether, but I know a bunch of scrappy kids that I'm willing to give my all for. Bulkhead said as he smiled towards Rai in his nightmare, who smiled back. Same here. RC nodded. So, let's go out in a blaze of glory. She and Colin exchanged smirks with one another. Sayoko, Lelouch spoke to his loyal comrade and friend. Thank you for everything. He felt her reach out to gently grasp his hand with her own as she smiled towards him. I'll be with you until the very end, Lelouch. Now let's go get your sister. She declared. Lelouch nodded as he and all his friends turned their eyes then turned towards Darkmount itself. From the very top of his fortress, just below the hovering Nemesis warship, Megatron had stepped towards the ledge, the Predacon crawling up the side of his throne chamber and quickly moving to stand at his right side, while the Thanatos, with the smirking cybernetic Shin Hyuga Shang inside, hovered just above Megatron's left. The Lord of the Decepticons gazed out where he spotted, even from this distance, all his enemies as they too seemed to be gazing directly at him. Megatron looked towards his palm where his code emblem was before he activated his power, the emblem shining a brighter purple, as did his optics. Rise, my army. He raised his fist. With the powers provided by his code, and the connection he had with Dark Energon, the blood of Unicron that had been stored in the underground channels activated. The channels cracked as the dark energy spread out and upward, straight towards the field of Cybertronian corpses above. A dark and ominous glow emanated from the ground as the bodies all began to twitch before they rose. It didn't take long for an army of the undead, one that vastly dwarfed the one the heroes fought in the ruins of Area 11 a long time ago, all the Terracons snarling and moaning like the zombies they were, all under the command of their master. The team of Autobots and Black Knights present gazed at the Terracon army that appeared before them, but none of them seemed the slightest bit nervous. Even as Megatron gazed down at them with a taunting expression, that look faded into one of seriousness as he saw multiple glow spots appear in the distance. These were ground bridge portals, and they stretched across various areas of the soon-to-be battlefield, both on the ground and in the air, though they were all kept at a reasonable distance to avoid any dimensional ruptures that would lead to channels of the Shadow Zone. Stepping out of one portal on the right side of the heroes was Ultra Magnus, Ogi in the Gawain Narian, Geass, and Smokescreen, and they all lead multiple Black Knight nightmares that emerged from that portal, and several others around them. Flying out of two portals above that group were the airships known as the Granbury Mk2 and the Ikaruga. The latter was operated by Euphemia, Diathard, Claus, Nina, Lloyd, and Cecile. The former was operated by Toto, Rakshata, Misty, Fixit, Shirley, Millie, Kagaya, and Rivals. Of course, they were flanked and escorted by several aerial nightmares that included Jetfire, Windblade, Toto in the Zangetsu, Oigros in the Agravain, Maribel in the Lancelot Trial, Chiba in her Akatsuki Command Unit, Gino in the Tristian Divider, Orpheus in the Guka Byakuin, Monica in the Florence Nero, Uldren in the Lancelot Grail, and Sokia in the Vincent Graham. Emerging from a portal on the left side were Alita 1, Wheeljack, Nonette in the Galician Conquista, Warpath, Tamaki in his Wrecker Akatsuki, and many more heavy-duty Wrecker nightmares. They would soon be joined by Layla, Akito, Ryo, Ayano, and Yukiya in their respective Alexanders, along with Sideswipe, Grindcore, and Strongarm, and they would be leading an army of EU forces which consisted of Panzer Hamel nightmares and armored vehicles such as tanks and more than a few heavy command vehicles, one of which was commanded by Gene Smillis, still under the influence of Lelouch's Geass, along with multiple fighter jets that emerged from the portals in the air. Stepping out of various portals were the forces of the Chinese Federation that were led by Drift, Shink in his Shenhu, and they appeared to make up the largest bulk of this combined army with countless Ganglu nightmares, tanks and armored vehicles, with flying VTOL gunships emerging from the airborne portals, and even two massive armored fortresses known as Longdons, one of which was under the command of Tianzi, who was under the protection of Zhou. One portal was enough for a single group that consisted of Grimlock, Alice in the Pegasus, Swoop, Dalk in the Ryujin, Snarl, Sancha in the Scorpio, Sludge, Lucretia in the Tungsten, Slug, and Jeremiah in the Siegfried Loyal. The smallest military force that joined them was from Euro-Britannia, but they were still ready to fight, nonetheless. A single G1 unit emerged from a portal first, which was operated by Andrea Farnese as what remained of the Holy Order of Raphael were joined by Cornelia in her custom Vincent, Chigusa in her own Vincent as well, Guilford in his custom Akatsuki, Ashley in the Dagonet, and Jean in the Aglovale. Of course, they were also joined by several other nightmares and armored vehicles, land and air, that originated from the many smaller nations of the UFN. And last but certainly not least, the Ark itself had arrived, under the complete control of TAI, with Steven Knockout providing support. The mighty vessel was also flanked by the massive ship mode of Omega Supreme, who flew closer to the ground before transforming and revealing his mighty form as he stood before the massive army of Autobots and humans that would fight for this world and the known universe with everything they had. Megatron glared at the invading army. He drew the Dark Star Saber and pointed it forward, giving the command to the Terracon forces to attack as they roared and snarled before advancing. The Predacon as well giving a loud roar from its position. Lelouch clenched the controls of his nightmare, glaring at the only obstacle between him and the two members of his family that he would rescue no matter what. Let's roll. One shall stand. The muffled sounds of explosions could be heard all throughout the inside of Darkmount, even with two Viacon guards outside of a certain room. To say it was tense would be an understatement, so tense that one of them was just about done. That's it. I'm outta here. The first one looked ready to walk away. Wait, where are you going? The second Viacon asked his partner. Away from here. This whole thing is crazy. I'm not gonna stick around and get blown to pieces. How are you going to get away with a freaking war going on outside? You'll be shot down in seconds. Better than just waiting here. I can. Suddenly, a clawed hand had pierced through the first Viacon's back before he had his spark chamber ripped out, causing him to fall over and reveal Steeljaw. The second Viacon didn't have time to get over his shock as Steeljaw leapt at him to slash his claws at his throat and kill him instantly. Was that really necessary? Sarah questioned as she and Nunnally appeared behind him. Can't have them giving our location to Megatron, can we? Steeljaw replied before opening the door to the chamber the two Viacons were guarding. What was inside was a large generator-like device with a console attached to it, which Steeljaw was at immediately. The anti-ground bridge generator. Once this is offline, it should make it easier for your friends. Steeljaw already worked the controls. Though knowing Soundwave, he himself will probably have the whole building rigged even if this is turned off, so he might not be able to bridge out of here. I'm surprised you don't rip this thing to pieces too. Sarah commented, making no effort to hide her disdain for his methods. And risk it blowing up in our faces. The wolf-like Decepticon responded. I'm ruthless, but I'm not a savage. Could have fooled me. Sarah commented, which Steeljaw elected to ignore as he got to work. It then became silent as the immortal woman glanced at the younger girl in their company, who had yet to say so much as a single word to her, not that Sarah could blame her. She pretty much had her whole world shatter with the recent revelation about her mother. If Nunnally was mad at her, Sarah would completely understand. Hell, she would accept if Nunnally outright hated her after this, not just for keeping it all a secret, but for having a part to play in Ragnarok that ultimately ruined hers and her brother's life. But it would still hurt. Nunnally, Sarah stuttered, trying to find the right words to say. I'm sorry, I didn't tell you. I thought by not telling you, I was sparing you. You were someone who was always so kind to me. I didn't want to break that, I didn't want to hurt you. But I just. She was cut off when Nunnally suddenly leapt at her, wrapping her arms around her, much to the immortal's surprise. You were always there for us, she heard Nunnally's strained voice. She was crying. Even after everything you've been through, you saved my brother, helped our friends, been there for me, I don't care what sursets you have. You're our family, Sarah. No matter what, I love you. I always have, and I always will. That was all it took for Chera's eyes to turn wet as she embraced the younger girl back. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I love you too. This just so happened to be in Steeljaw's earshot, which only caused him to roll his eyes in annoyance as he finished his work. With the right command keys, the generator had lost power. And just to be sure they couldn't turn it back on again, Steeljaw ripped the console from its port and even slashed a few cords for good measure. Thundercracker, it's done. Steeljaw accessed the comms channel. I don't know if Soundwave can neutralize any bridges inside the fortress, but the Autobots should now be able to bridge all across the battlefield. I'll let them know. You and CC keep moving. If Megatron gets a hold of her, it's all over. Thundercracker told him. That's the plan. The wolf-like Decepticon walked over to the two females. If you're done, we need to go. Sarah glared at him, but Nunnally wiped the tears from her own eyes and stood up fully. He's right, we can't stay here. Yeah, I know. Sarah accepted as Steeljaw transformed into his vehicle mode again, allowing the two to enter before driving off into the hallways. The whole perimeter of Darkmount was nothing short of a war zone as the Autobots, Black Knights, and their army of allies from all over Earth threw themselves again and again at the swarm of Terracons that defended the fortress of their master. Explosions raged across the ravaged ground as heavy artillery was used to blast away the undead enemy. Anyone fighting at a closer range had to keep their distance, for even under heavy fighter, the Terracons being shot at refused to go down until they were completely obliterated. Several unfortunate nightmares and vehicles, with the people inside, happened to get overwhelmed by the Terracons and were smashed and ripped apart. Unlike the Decepticons or any other enemy they may have faced in the past, the Terracons had no sense of self-preservation, they knew no fear, they felt no pain, they would not stop until everything that wasn't a Terracon was dead. It felt like fighting back against an ocean. Near the center of the war zone, a certain group of our heroes, those that were leading this charge, continued to cut and blast their way through the enemy with everything they had. Optimus hovered in the air with his right hand had converted into an Energon blaster and his left holding an Energon minigun, which he used to shoot and gun down the Terracons that were advancing on their left flank, while the Shinkiro took to the air and covered Optimus' back. Inside, Lelouch, with Sayoko sitting behind him, activated the Shinkiro's chest-mounted weapon, deploying a prism before firing a beam directly into it. The beam refracted and split apart into several more beams that cut away a large amount of Terracons that came up in their right flank. Bumblebee had drowned the Polarity Gauntlet and used its powers to haul up several Terracons, lifting them up in the air and allowing Anya and Suzaku to blast them with the Mordred's Hadron cannons and Lancelot's rifles respectively. Ironhide suppressive fire with his cannons, trying to shoot down any Terracons that broke through their defense, although some were able to push and get through, despite having some of their parts, limbs, and faces blown off. Any that did manage to break through were quickly cut down by Ratchet and his own arm blades. RC and Colin both closed in, with the Gurren outstretching its Surger Claw to grab one Terracon and supercharge it with radiation before throwing the overheated undead corpse into several others right before it exploded. 3 tried to gang up on the Gurren, but RC kept her covered with her arm blades, rapidly slicing them to pieces before they could even react. Bulkhead and the Raiden came back to back as Terracons tried to surround them. Bulkhead's cannons took care of several that came up on his side, and any that tried to get close were quickly smashed by his maces. Rai grabbed one Terracon by the head with the Raiden's own Surger Claw and sent a charge of electricity through it, which spread out through the Terracons behind that one to break them down into tiny pieces. Damn it, how many of these things does Megatron have? Colin exclaimed. Enough to keep us away. RC said. These monsters are not meant to stop us, just keep us busy until Megatron activates his own twisted version of Ragnarok. Ratchet stated. To do that, he needs Sarah. Rice said. We need to get inside the fortress, now. Easier said than done. Bulkhead commented. Even with Omega Supreme, we still got the Khans, warship to worry about. And those fusion's cannons won't stay offline forever. Ironhide added. Lelouch tisked in frustration. Megatron was throwing everything he had at them to keep them from getting so much as an inch closer. It would be easier if they could ground bridge directly into the fortress, but nothing was ever easy. Heads up, more incoming. Bumblebee warned as they saw another line of Terracons march their way forward. Optimus, we'll need the Star Saber. Lelouch said. Indeed. However, before the Prime could draw the mighty weapon, a line of missiles and energon fire had shot down from the sky to blast away most of the Terracons. The ones who shot them were none other than Thundercracker and Skybite, who both flew in before transforming to land and finish off the remaining undead in that group before turning to face the heroes, all of whom had their weapons primed and ready. Easy, easy, we're on your side. Skybite raised his hands, as did Thundercracker, showing that they mean no harm. How can we be certain? Suzaku questioned. He didn't know much about Skybite, but he did know Thundercracker a bit from his time in Area 11, and while he wasn't as vile as Starscream or Arachnid, he wasn't exactly trustworthy either. We can debate and waste precious time, or we can help you and keep every sentient being in the universe from losing their free will. Thundercracker stated. You're looking for that immortal girl and the former princess, Nunnally, right? Skybite said, getting their attention. They're with Steeljaw and on the move, but they'll be caught soon. Everyone gazed at each other, though they had the idea they'd be working with a few Decepticons in this final confrontation. That didn't mean they'd have to like it. But given the situation, they had little choice. The heroes lowered their arms. What is the situation? Optimus asked the two. We got word from Steeljaw that he's shut down the anti-ground bridge generator. Thundercracker informed. Your forces should be able to pull out or go anywhere nearby if they need to. But we don't know if we can use it to access Darkmount yet. TAI, do you read? Lelouch contacted the Ark. Yes, Zero, I read you. Can you ground bridge us directly into the enemy fortress? Lelouch asked. It doesn't appear to be so. TAI informed. That interference that was surrounding the perimeter of the fortress is gone, but I'm still detecting that same frequency within the confines of the building itself. It is likely Soundwave's doing. Ratchet assumed. So, we can't bridge Nunnally and Sarah out of there. Bulkhead said. Then we're going in and getting them out ourselves. Suzaku stated. Attention all forces, Zero and I are leading a team directly to the enemy base. Optimus said through the comms. Keep the fight going out here. Maintain distance from the Terracons. Ogi, Alita, Maribel, Layla, Grimlock, Wizard, keep up the assault with our forces, push your way to Darkmount. Lelouch instructed. Toto, Magnus, you know what to do with the Nemesis. Cornelia, Shink, Tamaki, guard the mobile bases from the back, we can't afford to lose them. Yuffie, Kagaya, I'm differing command of the rear mobile bases to you. Understood. Roger. Be careful. Those were among the responses of many of his friends, family, and allies in this battle, all except for Euphemia who had something to say. Suzaku, Lelouch, Optimus, you come back. You bring Nunnally and Sarah back. Yuffie told them. We will. Suzaku promised. Oh, and Yuffie, I love you. From the bridge of the Ikaruga, the former princess smiled as she wiped a tear from her eye. I love you too, Suzaku. She signed off before getting serious. Claus, you're in charge of the Ikaruga. Yeah, sure. The man nodded in understanding. Yuffie, what exactly are you doing? Nina asked. What I can to take command. Yuffie replied stepping back a bit. TAI, bring me onto the Ark. Now. Stand by. A ground bridge portal opened for her, allowing Yuffie to step in. Omega Supreme, we need a clear path straight to Darkmount. Optimus ordered. Some distance away, the towering Autobot had stomped down on a large group of Terracons, his sentry turrets on his shoulders firing automatically to clear away any Terracons that mindlessly tried to get close to him. He heard Zero's command and identified the location of his leaders and their group, as well as estimated the distance between them and Darkmount, with seemingly countless Terracons separating them from their destination. It would be my pleasure. Omega Supreme aimed his drill-like arm, firing a cluster of missiles to blow away several Terracons before firing the main laser weapon, which carved its way through the ground and the horde before exploding. This obliterated a large chunk of the Terracons that barred their way. Excellent work. Lelouch thanked. Keep up the fight out here, and try and destroy the fortress, fusion cannons before they come back online. Let's move out. With that, the Autobots and Nightmares all transformed into their respective vehicle modes, all with the exception of the Mordred as it was stationed on top of Optimus truck mode, and flew through the clear path, along with Thundercracker and Skybite in their respective alternate modes as well. Hey, where's Slipstream? Skybite asked. I haven't seen her since we left Darkmount. She probably just flew away. Thundercracker responded, but we don't have time to deal with her right now. It was true, Slipstream had indeed flown far away from Darkmount by the time the war started. She flew straight up through the clouds in her jet mode, and it wouldn't be long before she breached the clouds and left the planet's atmosphere. I'd prefer to keep my free will, but I'd also like to keep my overall freedom. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life rusting in a cell. Let them have this planet. I'll find somewhere else to call my own. Despite Omega Supreme having cleared away most of the Terracons, there were a few survivors, though a majority of them had most of their bodies incinerated as they tried to climb back up and reach for the speeding group of Zero and Optimus, team that attempted to reach the fortress. Most of them were all run down by the ground-based vehicle modes or shot down a bit further on ahead by those that were air-based. As they went on ahead, the war continued as the Autobot and Black Knight forces engaged the sea of undead and seemed to be holding their own rather well. It helped that a giant was on their side. Omega Supreme continued to march and stomp down the horde of Terracons. He literally stomped on them like ants, and while there were several that tried to scale up his body, his built-in turrets made short work of them. "Oh man, look at that guy!" Rivals exclaimed with a grin as he and everyone else saw it all from the bridge of the Granbury Mk2. "Do we even need an army? Omega Supreme could probably take all those guys on by himself." "Hold on, let's not get ahead of ourselves," Rakshata advised. "Megatron did defeat him before on Cybertron." "That is correct," Fixit added. "And he's desperate now. We can't let our guard down." Shirley, Millie, Kagaya, and Misty all exchanged looks of uncertainty and concern. Not just with Rakshata and Fixit's warning, but the fact that Lelouch, Suzaku, Optimus, and all their closest friends are heading straight for the belly of the beast and there wasn't all that much they can do to help them, other than what they could out here. Speaking of, it looks like the Nemesis is moving in straight for Omega Supreme. Toto reported, much to the group's alarm. Target sighted. Commencing attack. Omega Supreme fired his laser again at Darkmount, specifically the top where the fusion cannons were stationed. However, his laser happened to impact a shield that surrounded the whole upper platform, though Omega Supreme kept up the bombardment. Observation: a protective barrier similar to the one from Damocles is protecting the cannons. Perpetual bombardment should break it. However, the Nemesis was now directly above him and it already had its main weapon primed and ready. The laser was currently charging and would reach full power soon. "We have a target lock on the enemy," one Viacon reported on the bridge of the Decepticon warship. "Open fire." The Viacon at command ordered. "Omega Supreme, watch out." Fixit's warning came too late as the Nemesis had already fired its main weapon on the towering Autobot. The gentle giant had taken the initial hit on his back, before bracing himself with his arms, but the resulting damage created a series of explosions that brought the mighty warrior down to his hands and knees. Fortunately, the assault from the Nemesis came to an end before any further damage could be dealt, but the large, red-hot, and smoking hole on his back was still deeply concerning. Critical damage sustained. Time is needed to reroute reserve power. Omega Supreme reported. "Our big guy is down," Lloyd exclaimed in a panic onboard the Ikaruga. "The Nemesis has struck again." Jetfire, Magnus, I hope your respective teams are about to move in, otherwise this will be a short fight. Diethard stated. "We're moving in now," Jetfire said as he and Windblade were in their respective jet modes and led an aerial attack alongside Gino, Nonet, and multiple fighter jets and flying nightmares, all of which kept the Ark covered as the Autobot vessel itself provided covering fire for the recovering Omega Supreme, keeping him safe from the Terracons that would advance on him while he was down. "All units open fire. Light it up," Nonet ordered as her Galician fired multiple shots from the Varus, while Gino's Tristan Divider launched its Harkins together to fire a focused energy blast. Jetfire and Windblade's vehicle modes, along with the other fighter jets opened fire on the Nemesis. All the condensed fire power hit and struck the face of the Decepticon warship, right before the Nemesis turrets returned fire, and a squadron of aerial Viacons all flew out from the Nemesis deck and engaged in a dogfight with the opposing forces. "Okay, I'd say we definitely got their attention," Gino reported as he used one of the Tristan's swords to cut off a Viacon jet's wings. Meanwhile, most of the Decepticons inside the Nemesis appeared to have left the warship to defend it from the outside attackers. Meaning, one hallway in particular was noticeably quiet. Until a ground bridge portal opened up, allowing the team that consisted of Ultra Magnus, Steve, Toto, Wheeljack, Drift, Jazz, Knockout, Smokescreen, and Chiba to enter. "This is the infiltration team reporting. We've entered the Nemesis and are ready to take the vessel," Ultra Magnus reported. "Acknowledged, but you might wanna hurry up, Commander. We need those fusion cannons offline as soon as possible," TAI responded. "Toto, you will take Knockout, Chiba, and drift to the ship's power core to ensure there are no surprises, of the self-destructive kind, left for us. Ultra Magnus began. Wheeljack, Smokescreen, Geass, Steve, you four are with me. We're taking the bridge. Aye aye, Captain. Smokescreen saluted. Sounds like a party. Wheeljack grinned. Yes, sir. Steve nodded. Hey, keep an eye on your guide. Geass advised Toto's team, referring to the former Decepticon among them. Do I look like the suicidal type to you? Knockout questioned. No, you seem more like the type to turn tail and run the second things don't go your way. Chiba shot. Touché. Knockout admitted. Let's move. Toto ordered as the group of 9 split off into their assigned teams and went in opposite directions. Within the Ark, the Omniglobe lit up once again. The bright blue light shining from all the activated screens that showed all the ongoing battles, all surrounding the one occupant who sat at a chair in the center. But rather than Lelouch who would be the one to sit there, it was Euphemia. She would be the first to admit she was not a chess master like her brother, but ever since the fall of Britannia, she had spent as much time as she could with him, Optimus, and even Cornelia, learning what she could about battle strategy, and she proved to be a quick learner. Lelouch was now leading the charge to rescue Nunnally and Sarah, as well as stop Megatron once and for all, so now it was up to her to take the lead. She glanced at all the ongoing battles before reaching out to those in command. This is Euphemia, assuming command of the assault. Tianzi, Kagaya, Toto, Farnese, Smillas, maintained the defensive line in the rear. She began her command. Tai keep the Ark covering Omega Supreme until Magnus and his team have taken the Nemesis. Alita, Maribel, you have a large number of Terracons bearing down on your position. I'm sending you reinforcements. Yes, that would be most helpful. Alita said as she used her arm blades to cut apart one Terracon and was forced to come back to back with the Lancelot trial, piloted by Maribel, both using their short-range blades to slice apart the surrounding Terracons, but it seemed like they would be overwhelmed soon. However, a Hadron blast descended from the sky to obliterate the Terracons in front of Maribel, while a series of Energon cleared out those who were advancing towards Alita, giving her some space to use her Energon blasters and take out the remaining undead. Hey, need a hand? Obi said from the Gawain Narian with the Agravain hovering beside him. We'll cover you from up here. Oigros said before firing the Hadron again to take out another line of Terracons that were advancing towards his niece, nephew, and Monica. With a bit more room, Orpheus Byakuan moved more freely, allowing him to launch his Harkins to decapitate 2 Terracons while he spun around with the blade from the unit's armored arm to slice apart 3 more. Monica lunged the Florence Nero's claws into the chest of one Terracon before pulling up to bisect it and then fired her own Hadron blast to obliterate a line in front of her. Uldren's Lancelot Grail spun around with such speed and power with its many blades that she seemed like a red tornado, cutting down and slicing apart any undead that dared to come close to her. Chigusa would also come in to provide suppressor fire in her Vincent. Ashley, Jean, and Sokia were surrounded by a large cluster of Terracons that pushed through the onslaught of long-ranged fire power, even moving through the remains of their own to get closer. We got this. We got this. Ashley said as he impaled one Terracon with the Dagonet's blade, only for that Terracon to still reach out and grab his nightmare. Okay, we don't got this. Ashley. Jean tried to help him, but the Aglovale was tackled and pinned down by 5 Terracons, with 4 more trying to do the same for Sokia's Vincent Graham. Help. Somebody, help. We're being torn apart. Sokia cried out. Heads up, Brits. The one who said that was none other than Yukiya in his Alexander, who fired his long-distance linear cannon to tear through the Terracons that were piling on their allies. This allowed his friends to move in and provide additional aid. Akito led the charge in his Alexander Liberté, his blade drawn which he spun around rapidly like a helicopter blade to slice and dice a majority of the Terracons. Grindcore took care of the rest with mighty swings of his fists and stomps of his enormous feet. Hey, save some for the rest of us. Rios said with a smirk as his Alexander's axe brought an end to one Terracon with sideswipe decapitating another that was about to come behind him. Iyano and Strongarm arrived to provide cover for Ashley, Jean, and Sokia as Layla's Alexander arrived to address the 3. Are you 3 alright? She asked. Yeah, guess Lady Luck's still on our side, EH. Ashley said with a relieved grin. Kablam. Warpath shouted in his tank mode as he obliterated another group of Viacons alongside Tamaki and a series of Wrecker Akatsukis. They, along with Shink, Cornelia, Guilford, were among the line of nightmares and armored vehicles that provided protection for the mobile bases, all of which were slowly advancing forward to the enemy fortress as those in front of them cut down at the zombies. If we keep this up, we'll have Darkmount surrounded soon. Keep up the pressure, Shink said. Don't let your guard down, Cornelia instructed. It would be foolish to not assume that Megatron still has a weapon he's yet to unleash. Guy's already had a giant space station and an army of zombies, what the hell can he possibly throw at us now? Tamaki questioned. The radar in Guilford's nightmare gave a ping as he spotted something unusual. There's something directly under us, something big. The ground underneath the line of mobile bases began to shake, especially underneath the command vehicle under the direction of Smilas when suddenly, something enormous exploded out from the ground underneath, tearing apart said vehicle and killing not only everyone inside, but completely destroyed many of the nightmares and vehicles that were providing protective escort. Everyone looked in genuine terror as they saw the familiar shifting metallic beast that was the driller. But it looked vastly different than before. It looked like it was on the verge of falling apart as most of its body was hastily fused together, but a certain dark purple substance. You just had to say something, Tamaki, Cornelia said with lowered eyelids. What the hell? Even Warpath's face paled. Is that the driller? Nina exclaimed in terror as they all saw it from the Ikaruga's main screen. But I thought it was destroyed when Optimus and the others attacked the Geass order. The terrified Cecile recalled. According to these readings, Claus was looking at the console in front of him as the monstrosity had already been scanned. That thing is filled to the brim with dark energon. It's a Terracon, Diethard exclaimed in shock. Megatron and Shockwave must have recovered its remains and used dark energon to revive it. A zombie driller, Lloyd gulped. I would be so fascinated, if I wasn't so completely terrified. Suddenly, the entire Ikaruga shook as though something hit it rather hard, nearly knocking everyone off their feet. What now? Cecile questioned. We just lost our starboard engine. Something hit us, Nina reported before looking at the alerts on her monitor. No, something's on top of us. The screen shifted to reveal what it was that was on their upper hull, which just so happened to be a certain giant metallic dragon that used its claws and jaws to tear out the whole starboard engine before flying up to unleash its deadly fire breath on the upper hull, causing even more explosions that knocked everyone hard to the ground. That blasted Predacon, Diethard muttered. We just lost our flight system. Cecile reported. We're going down. It was true, the Ikaruga was already falling from the sky. Though it still had one functioning engine that tried to stabilize the descending vessel, the best that could be managed would be a controlled crash. However, the hovering Predacon was not about to let that happen. It was about to unleash another fiery volley onto the descending craft, only to get bombarded by a series of blasts from its side, sending it spiraling through the air before it stabilized itself. The Predacon glared at the Granbury Mk2 as all its starboard guns and weapons were aimed at it before firing again with a series of missiles and energon blasts, but the Predacon flew up and around most of those blasts and moved in to attack the vessel with a roar. I think we might have just pissed it off. Rivals winced. And that wince turned into terror as he and all his friends saw the Predacon flying directly toward them with deadly intent. Fortunately, a ground bridge portal had opened just above the Predacon, with Grimlock falling out and landing on the beast's back, sending it off its path and just below the hovering Granbury. The leader of the Dinobots grabbed it by the wings and pulled up to try and halt its flight. The Predacon gave a roar of anger as it tried to shake off Grimlock, but he held firm. It wasn't long before they both crashed hard on the ground. Though the Predacon took the brunt of it, Grimlock was still thrown off by the impact. He gave a slight groan as he tried to push himself up but found a shadow looming over him and turned around with a glare to see the Predacon had already recovered. It roared and was ready to unleash its fire breath on him, only to get pelted by a series of energon blasts, courtesy of the flying swoop in his pterodactyl mode. Hey, quit trying to act like the big hero, Grimlock. Swoop cracked before flying to join up with his leader, transforming back into his Cybertronian form. Yeah, we want in on this too. Snarl added as he, Sludge, and Slug all stood by his side too. Grimlock's expression softened somewhat before he chuckled. I wouldn't have it any other way. All 5 of them turned to face the Predacon before it roared challengingly at them. Dinobots, charge. Meanwhile, the Terracon driller was pelted by rapid fire from all directions from nearly every single unit in the defensive line. All units fire with everything you got. Don't give that monster an inch. Cornelia ordered. I'm giving it all I got, but that damn thing won't go down. Warpath said as he fired all his tank blasts. Even as Tamaki's wrecker Akatsuki fired all its missiles, creating a series of explosions along its side, the Terracon driller didn't even seem to notice them. That damn thing is already dead. How are we supposed to kill it a second time? Tamaki questioned. The abomination didn't even seem the least bit focused on them. Instead, its attention seemed focused on the largest target, which just so happened to be the Longdon that was being operated by Tianzi and her crew. It dug its way back into the ground and swam through the earth about halfway like a shark through water, tearing up anything that was in its path as it made its way closer to its target. No, Your Highness, Shink exclaimed in terror as he flew as fast as the Shenhu could carry him. Even as he was above the monster and fired with his Nightmare's central chest cannon, the driller wouldn't stop. Tianzi looked in genuine horror on the screen of her mobile base to see the monster making its way toward her, even as everyone in the control room was in a panic. "Tai, we need a ground bridge to the Ark immediately," Zhou exclaimed as she grabbed the young Empress and prepared to pull her to safety at a moment's notice. But it appeared to be too late as the Terracon driller was just about to reach its goal and tear the Longdon asunder, the hole that was its mouth opening up and ready to chow down. "I think not." A rapidly spinning sphere shot with such speed and power that it tore through the upper part of the Terracon driller, actually causing it to veer off course and slam its side into the Longdon, causing it to tip and crash somewhat to the ground, knocking down the whole crew inside, but there appeared to be no casualties. The sphere stopped spinning, hovering above the ground, and then transformed to reveal the large, orange, and enormous nightmare that was the Siegfried Loyal. Undead abomination, exists only for destruction, knows nothing of loyalty, Jeremiah spat in disgust. He contacted the Longdon and his remaining allies. Tianzi, use this chance to evacuate your crew from the Longdon into the Ark. Cornelia, take the remainder of your forces, including the rear line, and keep up the advance. The irregulars will take it from here. Jeremiah, Cornelia was in a state of awe. Cornelia, do what he says. Euphemia contacted her sister. I directed them there. Let him, Alice and the others handle that monster for now. I understand. Cornelia trusted her younger sister's judgment. Shink, we're evacuating to the Ark now. The Empress is safe, Zhou reported, causing the man to sigh in relief. Thank you, Jeremiah, Euphemia. Save the thanks until after we survive this, Alice told him as the Pegasus had flown in, alongside the Tungsten, Scorpio, and Ryujin and hovered alongside the Siegfried Loyal. I helped kill this thing before, I can kill it again. Alright, good luck, Warpath said. Yeah, you're gonna need it. Tamaki added as all the ground forces nearby scattered to regather and regroup everyone in the rear line, leaving the 5 irregular units to face off against the Terracon driller as it turned its attention to them. That thing is disgusting. Sancha cringed. Got a plan on how to kill it? Lucretia asked. Yeah, Alice narrowed her eyes. Tear it apart until there's nothing left. Sounds like they're having a party. Grindcore pointed toward the ensuing battles against the Predacon and Terracon driller as he, Sideswipe, Strongarm, and the Black Wyverns, all stood alongside Ashley, Jean, and Sokia in their respective nightmares. We should help them, Iyano said. No, you heard Yuffie's order. Layla stated. We need to keep up the advance. So, keep killing zombies. Got it, Yukia said. Incoming. Sokia warned as something large and fast flew down and blocked their path. This just so happened to be the Thanatos as it faced them all with a legion of Terracons behind it. Well, isn't this rather fitting? Shin said from within with an amused look on his face. My dear and brother and his precious friends, standing alongside my former subordinates. I suppose that since we all started this together, we'll end it together. Shin. Akito's eyes narrowed. This guy again? Ryo questioned. Seriously, don't you have anything better to do with your life than just messing around with us? Sideswipe asked the cybernetic psychopath. Get a life, why don't you? Or better yet, how about we end yours? Ashley said seriously. I'd be happy to do so myself. Shin smirked at that declaration before glancing at the Aglovale. Do you feel the same way, Jean? Ever after everything we've been through together? Jean shuddered in her nightmare, remembering how she had romantic feelings towards the man who took her in and gave her a purpose that she never thought she had. But that man is long gone, or maybe he never even existed. What stood in front of her was a force for evil and she would see it destroyed. Yes, she said, clenching her nightmare's controls firm as she glared hard. Brother. Akito got Shin's attention. This is where it ends. You're not walking away this time. Shin's composed smirk turned into a wild grin. That's right. This time, I'll make sure you die, Akito. Meanwhile, the team that consisted of Optimus, Zero, Sayoko, Bumblebee, Suzaku, RC, Colin, Bulkhead, Rai, Ironhide, Anya, Ratchet, Thundercracker, and Skybite had managed to make their way to the base of the fortress. The Cybertronians and nightmares that could transform, once again did so from their respective alternate modes into their humanoid appearances as they gazed up Darkmount. Yesh, overcompensate much. How big does he need his tower to be? Rai commented. It'll be all the more satisfying when we bright it down. Suzaku narrowed his eyes hatefully at the Decepticon fortress. Got that right. Bulkhead agreed. Steeljaw, we're at the base of Darkmount. Where are you? Thundercracker asked over the comms. The cargo and I are on the same level. I'm supplying you my coordinates, but I can't provide an exact location. Steeljaw reported. Thundercracker looked at a device that was built into his arm and received the telemetry data. I got it. We'll be with you soon. The Blue Seeker said. Those cannons are still in one piece. Lelouch observed. With Omega Supreme down, and the Ark occupied with the Nemesis, we'll have to destroy them ourselves. Shockwave is repairing the cannons now, so we'll have to deal with him too. Skybite said. You two, get me up there. Ratchet told Thundercracker and Skybite. If you fully intend on stopping this madness, then we'll deal with Shockwave and destroy the cannons. Hold on Ratchet, I think you might be biting off more than you can chew, even with these guys helping you. Colin told him. Yeah, you of all people should know how dangerous Shockwave is. Ironhide added. We can spare a few more to help you. I'll join you. Suzaku offered. I can also help with additional firepower. Anya offered. No, you'll need all the power you can get if you're going to subdue Megatron and likely Soundwave if he's still with him. Ratchet added. That includes the Polarity Gauntlet, Bumblebee. He said to the scout, who looked ready to hand it over to him. Ratchet, are you sure? RC asked. We do not have time to debate. Ratchet stated. Every second we waste now, Megatron could be getting ever closer to assimilating all sentient life into his twisted mind. Optimus, you know I'm right. He looked towards his leader specifically. Though Optimus did not like the idea of one of his oldest friends facing one of the most dangerous Decepticons ever, even with backup, he also knew that Ratchet was indeed correct. Securing Sarah and Nunnally took first priority, and they had to use anything they could to subdue Megatron was not only immortal, but also had the Dark Star Saber in his possession. Very well. Optimus accepted. Good luck, old friend. Hey Doc, at least take this. Bulkhead handed Ratchet a grenade. Could use a wrecker's touch. Ratchet nodded as he accepted the explosive and quipped it to his side. You too, Lelouch looked towards Thundercracker and Skybite, more than tempted to use his Geass to force them to protect Ratchet with their lives. He would be no different from Megatron if he did that, so he restrained himself. If anything happens to our doctor, you will face the consequences. We will fight alongside him. I give you my word as a shark. Skybite vowed with Thundercracker nodding in agreement. Once that was said, the two transformed once again. Skybite allowed Ratchet to mount his shark mode before they flew straight up towards the cannons. Let's go. Nunnally's waiting for us, Sayoko said. Optimus nodded. Stand back, he ordered as he drew the Star Saber, his allies and friends taking a few steps forward before he raised the mighty sword and brought it down, sending a vertical wave that tore through the walls and into the fortress, allowing them easy access. The group of bots and nightmares quickly entered Darkmount and into one of the many hallways, looking around for any signs of their captured friends. They heard the sounds of a vehicle approaching and turned toward the long end of the hall, where they saw Steeljaw's vehicle mode quickly making its way toward them before coming to a stop. The doors opened, allowing Nunnally and Sarah to step out and Steeljaw to transform. Almost everyone had their weapons primed at the wolf-like Decepticon, who held his claws up. "Nice to know you take me seriously," Steeljaw snarked. "Nunnally, Sarah, step away from Steeljaw. Right now," Suzaku said. Though he was relieved at seeing them safe, he wouldn't let his guard down until he knew they were secure. Sarah nodded as she and Nunnally held hands and they quickly made their way to their friends. The second he saw them again, Lelouch felt a great deal of relief. Once they were safe and in their care, they would all step back outside briefly and allow a ground bridge portal to open and take them to the safe confines of the Ark. From there, he, Optimus, Suzaku, and all his other friends would subdue Megatron, destroy the artificial thought elevator that Sarah had told them about, and finally end this damned nightmare once and for all. They were so close to it all being over. Just as the two girls stepped in the middle and in between the two opposing parties, a ground bridge portal suddenly opened up in the exact same spot. And Megatron quickly stepped out, the Dark Star Saber in hand. With a yell, he swung the evil sword towards the Autobots and Black Knights, while also firing his fusion cannon at Steeljaw's feet, sending him flying. Though Optimus was quick enough to draw the Sky Boom shield and activate it, the force of the wave of dark energy still pushed Optimus and his allies back slightly. This momentary distraction was all the Lord of the Decepticons needed to see Sarah and Nunnally in his free hand. Hearing his sister's screams caused Lelouch to gasp as he saw Megatron about to enter the ground bridge portal once again. Even Sayoko felt her heart stop at the sight of the precious girl she watched over for so long in the hands of someone so vile and sinister, a sentiment that was felt by Marianne as she took control of Anya's body. "No!" Lelouch screamed as he instinctively launched the Shinkiro at full speed, something Marianne also did with the Mordred. Both nightmares ramming into Megatron, sending all of them, captives included, into the open portal. Lelouch, Anya, Suzaku, Colin, Bumblebee, and all exclaimed. Without missing a beat, they, along with Optimus, Rai, Ironhide, Bulkhead, and RC all ran into the portal as well. Even Steeljaw was quick to recover as he ran on all fours at high speeds and leapt into the portal the second it closed. The portal that Soundwave had opened led to the cave system below Darkmount, where the very same silent Decepticon was located in. The very same one where the artificial thought elevator was located at the far end of the whole cavern. However, Soundwave was not expecting to see the Shinkiro and Mordred tackling his leader into the caverns. Megatron was quick to act and recover, briefly transforming into his Cybertronian jet mode to shake off the two nightmares, while keeping both Sarah and Nunnally trapped inside body. Even as he transformed back and landed behind Soundwave, the two Decepticons happened to see Optimus, Bumblebee, RC, the Gurren, Bulkhead, Ironhide, the Raiden, and even Steeljaw emerge from the ground bridge portal just as it closed. Immediately, Soundwave unleashed the full power of the Resonance Blaster on all those in front of him, bombarding them with an all-encompassing wave of intense sonic power and forcing everyone, human and Autobot, to stop and cover their ears while the force of the Sonics also kept them back. "Keep them occupied, Soundwave. I've had enough delays," Megatron instructed as he quickly ran through the cavern system. Even as he and Sayoko groaned in pain from the sonic attack, Lelouch saw through the static on his screen that Megatron was escaping, with two of the people he cared about most. "You're not getting away," he grunted as he tried to reach for the controls. However, Steeljaw was the first to act, reaching for a device that he had quipped to his waist and then threw it up and over the attack. Soundwave glanced at the device just as it exploded and unleashed an opposing wave of sonic power that not only cancelled out the effects of the Resonance Blaster, but even sent Soundwave flying and crashing into a cavern wall. The attack stopped as everyone felt the relief that followed and took a moment to collect themselves. "Soundwave isn't the only one who's a master of subsonics," Steeljaw said with a groan. "A little Soundwave grenade I happened to whip up. Megatron is escaping," Lelouch exclaimed. "Optimus, you take everyone else and go after Megatron," Ironhide told him. "Bulkhead, Rai, and I will handle Soundwave." "Understood." Optimus nodded as he ran on ahead. The Shinkiro, Lancelot, Gurren, and Mordred followed him along with Bumblebee and RC, leaving Ironhide, Bulkhead, and the Raiden to face Soundwave as the silent Decepticon pulled himself up from the wall to see the three enemies. "You're not going anywhere." Bulkhead formed a mace in his hand. Still owe ya for what you did on Horai Island. That makes two of us. Ray's eyes narrowed as the Raiden had drawn its katana in one hand while the Surger claw powered up with electricity. Soundwave deployed both Ravage and Laserbeak. The latter quickly flew over the three and rained energon blasts, forcing them to scatter and take cover. Ravage ran quickly to block the Raiden's path and fired energon blasts of his own from his mouth, which Rai retaliated with a lunge of his Surger claw, to which Ravage leapt back to avoid and was put on the defensive as the Blue Nightmare rode after him and Laserbeak retaliated with energon fire from above. Bulkhead roared as he rushed Soundwave, throwing out his mace, which Soundwave not only swerved to avoid, but also parried with a chop of his long and thin arm to Bulkhead's own and knocked him off balance, leaving him open for Soundwave to extend both his tentacles and shoot them into Bulkhead's back to slam him into the cavern wall. Ironhide tried to shoot at him while his back was turned, but Soundwave had quickly lifted Bulkhead with his tentacles and threw him at Ironhide, the two large Autobots smashing into each other and rolling across the ground. Rai noticed his friends were down and broke off his pursuit from Ravage, activating the Raiden's energy wings as he fired multiple projectiles toward Soundwave. Unfortunately, the silent Decepticon had noticed the attack and quickly opened a ground bridge portal to absorb the projectiles, while the other end of the vortex opened up directly behind the Raiden, effectively sending Ray's attack back at him, taking out his whole energy wing system and sending the Blue Nightmare to the ground. Soundwave was about to advance on the downed Raiden and fire his resonance blaster again, but Ironhide had arrived in the nick of time to punch Soundwave in his side, knocking him off balance and allowing the black Autobot to grab Soundwave by his arm and throw him right at Bulkhead, who pulled back his mace hand and smashed it right into Soundwave's visor with enough force to send Soundwave flying and crashing back into the wall. Rai, are you okay? Bulkhead quickly rushed to the Blue Nightmare as the Raiden picked itself up. Inside, Ray's forehead was bleeding as he assessed the damage. My wings are down, but I can still fight. Good, because we need everything we can get if we're gonna put him down. Ironhide commented as they saw Soundwave stand back up, Ravage and Laserbeak regrouping around their master. The two opposing parties glared at one another for a few seconds before charging at each other once again, neither side willing to stop until the other was completely destroyed. Shockwave continued to work at the console in the main control room for the fusion cannons. The bombardment from Omega Supreme's attack did drain away at a large portion of the shield's power, roughly 63.4% to be accurate. But with the largest threat neutralized for the time being, this gave the scientist time to work to get Darkmount's main weapons back up and running. Once they were active, the invading forces could be dealt with. And even so, Shockwave had received an alert from Soundwave that Megatron had recaptured CC, which meant that Neo Ragnarok's activation was now underway. This war would soon be coming to an end, as will all other wars and the entire concept of conflict itself. Suddenly, Thundercracker's jet mode had broken in through one of the windows. While he hovered, Thundercracker shot at the power core for the fusion cannons, only for a shield to appear and protect said core from the rapid-fire energy blasts. Thundercracker was then shot in the wing by Shockwave's own cannon, knocking him from the air into the ground, where the Blue Seeker transformed and skidded. Shockwave prepared to fire on him again, only for Skybite to ram into him with an open jaw and bite down on Shockwave's cannon arm and flew further, causing Shockwaves to skid on his feet as he was pushed back against the wall. Ratchet, who had been riding on Skybite, leapt off and tried to hack into the system to shut down the cannons, but before he even got the chance, Skybite was thrown at him, sending the two rolling across the floor. Skybite, Thundercracker. The one-eyed Decepticon acknowledged as they recovered along with Ratchet. Your treachery is unsurprising. When I discovered the fusion cannons had been sabotaged, I took the liberty of activating a protective shield around the power core, one powerful enough to sustain any weapon you have in your possession. The only way to stop the cannons is to shut them down from the console, which I will not allow. Why Shockwave? Why help Megatron with his insane plan? Skybite questioned. You'll lose your free will, too. You obviously don't care about the rest of the galaxy, or even other Decepticons, but I would have thought you'd at least try and protect yourself, if anything so you can keep experimenting since it's apparently all you want to do. Thundercracker stated. My experiments will indeed come to an end if Neo Ragnarok is a success. Shockwave replied. However, once all minds are assimilated, all knowledge from all sentient life across the galaxy will be shared by all. The purpose of my experiments is to learn and understand. My one and only objective is know all the secrets of the universe, to gain all knowledge. I may indeed lose my individuality, but the complete knowledge of the entire galaxy is worth the price. And if we must eliminate the free will of every sentient creature, so be it. Over my sparkless husk, Ratchet swore before charging forward, his hands converted into blades as he leapt at Shockwave, who used his cannon arm to block and vault Ratchet over himself and to the ground behind him. Shockwave tried to advance on him, but Ratchet quickly recovered and slashed his blades at him, which barely scratched the one-eyed Decepticon, who swung his cannon arm at him to bash Ratchet into the wall. Thundercracker opened fire at Shockwave, scoring a few hits on his side, but Shockwave quickly turned and returned fire at Thundercracker, who took cover behind the shielded power core. Skybite then ran to tackle Shockwave, which only pushed him back slightly. Shockwave retaliated by lifting both his arms up and slamming them onto Skybite's back to knock him down, where Shockwave proceeded to kick him into the shielded core. Ratchet had recovered once again and gave a yell as he rushed his enemy once more. Explosions continued to erupt in the sky as the Ark and Nemesis exchanged fire upon one another, the former vessel providing cover as Omega Supreme continued to recover, while Jetfire, Geno, No-Net, Windblade, and their squadron of airships were engaged in a brutal dogfight with the flying Viacons. Windblade flew in her jet mode as she shot down 2 helicopter Viacons while 3 Jet 1s flew in pursuit and fired on her. Windblade retaliated by transforming and letting herself fly backwards, drawing one of her swords to cut the middle Viacon in half before transforming into her jet mode again and shot down the 2 remaining enemies now that she was behind them. The Galatians Varus fired in one hand, while a Harken was launched at the other to take out whatever flying Viacon that came close, even as 4 helicopters appeared behind No-Net to condense all their firepower on the Galatian. No-Net tried to fly out of the way, but she did take many shots, almost causing her Nightmare to get shot down. No-Net. Geno quickly flew in to assist her, the Tristan launching its Harkens again to combine together once more and unleash a blast that blew away the 4 helicopters. The Tristan had both its blades drawn as Geno flew over to provide aid for the hovering Galatian. "You good? Nightmare's still working, but I might need to touch down soon," she reported. Jetfire heard No-Net's report as he hovered in the air to shoot at any flying Viacons before relaying it all to his fellow commander. "Magnus, you'd better hurry. We're holding our own, but we won't last much longer out here." "Affirmative. We're near the bridge, but we've encountered a delay." Ultra Magnus responded as he, Geass, Smokescreen, Wheeljack, and Steve had taken cover on the sides of the pathway that led to the sealed bridge with 4 tank Viacons standing guard, all in their tank forms and firing their heavy artillery. "We can't get past these guys like this," Steve said. I can slip to the bridge and take out the guys on the other side," Smokescreen offered as he showed the phase shifter that was still attached to his arm. "And I can clear these guys out." Wheeljack revealed a grenade. "Alright, but Geass, you go with Smokescreen just in case," Ultra Magnus ordered. "You got it." The aforementioned Autobot nodded as he held onto Smokescreen's shoulder while the younger one activated his signature weapon. "Let's rock. Don't let go," Smokescreen said as he and his ally phased through the wall. "Cover your ears." Wheeljack threw the grenade right at the feet of the frontmost tank Viacons. Right before a muffled explosion could be heard on the other side of the doorway, the Viacons that were at the controls of the Nemesis bridge were taken off guard by the sudden appearance of Smokescreen and Geass. "Hey, don't mind us crashing the party," Geass snarked. All the Viacons immediately opened fire, causing the 2 Autobots to disperse just as Geass launched Undertone, who flew in his disc mode, straight to the Viacon at the main bridge controls. Undertone transformed and laid out a kick with the extra momentum from his flight to knock him down before fishing him off with a falling chop to the neck. Smokescreen kept his phase shifter active, allowing the energon shots to go through him as he shot down 3 Viacons on the right side of the bridge while Geass dealt with the ones on the left, using his sonic cannon to blast 2 of them before grabbing one by the face with his grappling hook and pulled him into a powerful punch to the face. Meanwhile, a similar battle was taking place at the warship's power core as Viacons on the lower and upper levels opened fire on the group that had just broken in. Todos Zangetsu had flown up to engage 6 Viacons on the upper levels, where he had drawn his Nightmare's katana to cut down one, Used 2/Harkins to impale 2 others before flying up and avoiding the energon shots of the remaining 3, but Todo dispatched them with precise shots from his Nightmare's shoulder turrets. Drift dispatched Safeguard and Jetstorm from his arms at 2 of the 4 Viacons in front of him. The 2 Minicons already had their weapons drawn as they went on the attack. Safeguard used his Naginata to impale 1 Viacon in its spark chamber upon contact, while Jetstorm used his nunchucks to smash the face of the second and knock him down. The last 2 Viacons were quickly cut down as Drift closed the distance, decapitating one with his right sword while impaling the other behind him with a lunge of his left one. 3 more Viacons shot at the zooming Akatsuki piloted by Chiba, but she expertly moved around all their shots and got in close to bisect 1 Viacon and spun around with her sword pointing outward to cut the last 2 in half. "Hey, watch it," Knockout warned as he was at the main console for the power core. "If this thing is ruptured, we're all going out with a bang." "Well, anything?" Chiba asked as the fighting came to an end. The former Decepticon doctor took a moment to look through the energon readings. "Doesn't look like there's been any sabotage or anything of the sort. I'd say we're good." "Magnus, the power core is secure," Todo reported. "Acknowledged. We've just secured the bridge as well." Ultra Magnus responded as he, Steve, and Wheeljack were already inside his smokescreen. Geass and Undertone had finished off the last of the resistance, and all the Autobots were now at the controls. "The Nemesis is ours. We have full control," Steve reported. "Then let's give our guys outside a helping hand." Wheeljack grinned as he took full control of the Nemesis weapons. "Yuffie, we're done here," Smokescreen reported. "We took over the Nemesis." "Good work, Smokescreen." The pink-haired commander smiled as she continued to sit in the Omniglobe, directing all the battles. "See what you can do about Darkmount's fusion cannons. Jetfire, Magnus and the others have taken over the Nemesis and will help clear the skies. You and the rest of your unit go down and help everyone on the ground against all those Terracons." "Roger that," Jetfire responded. "TAI, make sure the Arc covers Omega Supreme. If that Terracon driller or the Predacon tries to attack him, shoot them down," Yuffie ordered. "Understood," TAI replied. "Cornelia, how goes your recovery operation? Asplund and the others have survived," her sister relayed. "Fortunately, the Ikaruga wasn't too damaged, it was a controlled crash. We're pulling them out, now. Keep them covered. Once they're out, signal TAI to bridge them back to the Ark," Yuffie instructed. "Once they're safe, keep up the push with the rear line. Consider it done." Yuffie's body began to shake, her eyes were straining slightly as she felt the mental resistance in directing all these ongoing battles. It was little wonder Lelouch only used the Omniglobe once, and that was when they were backed against the wall. Now it was the other way around, and they were leading the final push against the Decepticon threat. But that didn't make it any easier. As much as her mind screamed at her to stop and rest, she had to keep it up until she was certain the battle was on. Suzaku, Lelouch, Optimus, Bumblebee, Dreadwing, if any of them were in her position, she knew they wouldn't stop until then either, and neither would she. "Not yet, keep going," she urged herself. "Not until it's over. Not until we've won." Back underground, Megatron had already made it to the artificial thought elevator. He stood before the structure that would ascend him to godhood, and he would finally have it all. Every sentient being would be an extension of himself, no more freedom or choice, no more conflict or destruction. His will is all the only burden shall be required, and the galaxy, no, the universe itself. Everything and everyone will finally know the peace he envisioned. Peace through the destruction of individuality as a whole. "Let us out. Let us go. You won't succeed. We'll stop you." He heard Nunnally and Chera's calls of defiance from inside as they futilely tried to stave off the inevitable, but even Chera's power through her code could do nothing to overcome his own. "Fret not, for it will all be over soon. Megatron." The Lord of the Decepticons turned around to see Optimus, and all his friends and allies trying to rush their way to him as fast as they could. "You're too late." Megatron had already activated the power of his code, the Geass emblem in his hands glowing a dark purple, his optics shining brighter, and all the sigils on the artificial thought elevator glowing behind him as well. The bright light shined even brighter as everyone was forced to stop and cover their eyes, even those in the nightmares were momentarily blinded. "My destiny awaits." When the light vanished, Megatron was gone. The artificial thought elevator had served its purpose, transporting Megatron from this world to the pocket dimension that was known as the Sword of Akasha. No, Lelouch exclaimed, not giving up. "Tai, Megatron has escaped to the Sword of Akasha. We need a ground bridge there now. I'm sorry, but I can't lock onto those coordinates," she reported. "What do you mean? You opened a portal there before, remember?" Suzaku reminded. "There's some kind of interference that's keeping me from locking on," Tai responded. "It's the same kind of interference that's currently surrounding all of Darkmount. I can't open a portal there." "Soundwave," Bumblebee said in a growl. "So, let's go back and help the others kill him," Colin exclaimed. "By the time we do that, it could be too late." Steeljaw argued. "Every second counts here, so let's destroy it." "No, out of the question." RC stood in his way, barring him from the structure, with the Shinkiro also standing by her side, Lelouch and Sayoko both glaring hard at the wolf-like Decepticon. "We will trap Nunnally and Sarah inside forever. They won't be able to escape," Sayoko stated. "Neither will the immortal Megatron." Steeljaw growled. "If we destroy the thought elevator, Neo Ragnarok is done. Are you willing to risk the sentience of every sentient being over 2 small life forms?" "I can get us inside," Marianne spoke up, catching everyone's attention. The Mordred was already directly in front of the thought elevator. Anya had deactivated her nightmare and stepped outside. The red rings around her eyes indicated that Marianne was in full control. "The unique ability of my Geass essentially makes me a ghost. I'm not quite alive, but not dead either," Marianne explained. "Because of that, I can access the Sword of Akasha, manifest myself inside the system, and leave Anya's body. I can also open the door and allow all of us access." "Are you certain?" Optimus asked seriously. "Have you performed this action before?" "Yes, Charles and I tested it," Marianne revealed. "We did it behind VV's back, shortly after my original body died and I transferred myself to Anya. I had to transfer myself back to her though. Even if my original body was preserved, we couldn't risk VV learning I was alive. But when I leave her, I won't return to her." "What'll happen to Anya though?" Suzaku asked. "She'll be unconscious for a while, but she'll be alright," she answered. "We can worry about that later," Bumblebee said. "You can get all of us inside. Are you certain?" "Yes, but you'll need to stand close," Marianne confirmed. "Very well," Optimus nodded. "RC, Colin, Steeljaw, remain out here and guard the thought elevator. Watch over Anya. The rest of us will go inside. But, if we are not back within 5 minutes, destroy the structure." "What?" Colin's face went pale at that. "Optimus, if we do that," RC began. "We will be trapped," Bumblebee confirmed. "What choice do we have now?" "I hate to agree with Steeljaw of all people, but we can't waste any more time." Suzaku agreed. "But we will be back. And we will rescue them," Sayoko vowed. She reached forward and gently touched Lelouch's hand. "My lord, it's been an honor." Lelouch looked back to his mate who's been by his side every step of the way and smiled back. "The honor's been all mine." RC looked towards Optimus, who gave her a knowing expression with his optics and a confirming nod, something RC seemed to understand as she nodded back. "Good luck in there. And come back. Everyone will be waiting." "We will return," Optimus promised. Colin's expression couldn't be seen. Even inside the Gurren, a shadow was cast by her hair to conceal her eyes, making it impossible to see what she was thinking. But just then, she brought the Gurren as close as she could to the Shinkiro and opened the cockpit. "Lelouch, open up," Colin said as she stood up straight. "Wah, Colin." He wasn't sure what she was requesting now of all times. "Just open the damn thing." The tone in her voice had indicated that Colin had something important to tell him, and given what little time they had right now, Lelouch kneeled the Shinkiro down to Gurren's level and opened his own cockpit, where he stood to face her. "Colin," Lelouch didn't even get a chance to say anything as she quickly closed the distance, grabbed him by his shoulders, and pulled him into a kiss. Lelouch was caught off guard for only a second before he returned the kiss just as she pulled away, revealing her eyes were already soaking wet with tears as she looked at him fiercely. "You had better come back. If you don't, I..." The young revolutionary gently caressed his hand on her cheek as he gave a firm yet caring smile. "I will come back, I promise." With that, he withdrew back into the Shinkiro's cockpit and closed it up, though he caught a glimpse of the smile and nod Sayoko gave him, causing him to smile back before he got serious. "Let's do this," Zero said as the Shinkiro activated once again. Suzaku drove the Lancelot close to the artificial thought elevator alongside his best friend as Optimus and Bumblebee also stepped forward. Once they were close enough, Marianne placed both of Anya's hands onto the surface of the structure as she channeled her own power. "This is where we say goodbye, Anya." The spirit communicated with her host. "I know I don't have a right to say this, but thanks for everything. Once this is over, live your life to the fullest. No regrets. No looking back. Make some nice memories for yourself." "I will," Anya communicated back. "And, whatever it is you're looking for, whatever kind of peace you want, I hope you find it. Goodbye." She still had every right to hate Marianne for what she did to her, and a part of her still did. Yet, at the same time, she's been a part of her for so long, that with her now about to leave once and for all, it felt like a piece of her was also leaving. Anya knew Marianne's past and sins, and while she despised her for it, she also wanted to wish her the best of luck too. The markings on the artificial thought elevator glowed once more as Marianne's spirit began to manifest out from Anya's body. A bright light shined out and encompassed not only her, but also the two Autobots, the two nightmares and all three humans inside. When the light vanished, they were gone, all except Anya. Just as Marianne had said, with her spirit gone now vacated from the younger girl's body, Anya fainted to the ground, having fallen unconscious. But RC was quick to move in and catch her before gently setting her back into the Mordred's open cockpit. This left only the blue female Autobot, the young warrior and her red nightmare, and the wolf-like Decepticon. "Well, here's hoping for the best," Steeljaw said with a seemingly sincere smile. "Yeah, for them," RC replied, briefly keeping her back turned to him before turning around her Energon blaster directly at Steeljaw. "Not so much for you." "Whoa, I thought we had a truce." Steeljaw had his claws raised with a feigning innocence. "Right, like we believe that." Colin glared. "You were planning on destroying that thing once everyone was inside, trapping all of us forever, am I wrong?" RC asked rhetorically. Steeljaw shook his head with a slight chuckle. "Was I really that obvious? Guess I'm losing my touch. And I'm assuming that's the reason Prime wanted you two to stay behind. What do you think?" Colin questioned as she sat back in the Gurren's cockpit and powered it up. "I think that I'm not going to pass up this chance," Steeljaw said eagerly. "Stop Megatron's insane plan, and get rid of Optimus Prime and Zero all at once. Who could say no to such a golden opportunity? We're not going to let you do that," RC said as her Energon blasters were already charged and primed, while the Gurren's energy wings activated as Colin readied the Surger Claw. "Then I'll just have to tear you to pieces first," Steeljaw snarled before leaping at them with a mighty yell. And this at the end of Season 2 Part 18 of This What If. Hope you guys like it. Do not forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.